The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Back and better than ever, overlooking Battleship, North Carolina. You're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Good morning to all across the Cape Fear region, or wherever you may be tuned in today through the various platforms in which you can find us each and every weekday morning from 7 until 10 Eastern Standard Time. Here along this beautiful coastline that we call home, we live where you vacation. We are 7 minutes past the hour. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show. 910-299-7535. So it was like the wild, wild west here in the city of Wilmington on Wednesday. As I was finishing up work here at the office, on Wednesdays we produce the latest edition of Wake Up Our Faith with our friends Matt Ham and Kevin Adams, and they get underway around 11 a.m. If you follow us through social media, our Facebook page pops up, live feed for them, and we hold their hour broadcast of Wake Up Our Faith every Wednesday from around 11 until noon. During the latter part of their show yesterday, my phone started to light up like a Christmas tree in that I have the Shot Spotter Alert app on my phone, and through about a 25 or so minute period around lunchtime yesterday, there were pings and bangs, and again, it looked like the wild, wild west. And at the time, I was paying attention to it, but, kind of one eye on the phone, the other eye, along with both ears, on Wake Up Our Faith. So wrapped it up, didn't think anything of it. And as I'm turning off the lights here at the studio, make my way out to the vehicle that I park a couple of blocks away from our office building here in downtown Wilmington, all of a sudden, as I'm coming up the hill, I notice the street filled with law enforcement, police tape everywhere. And then as I creep closer and closer to my vehicle, I notice that my car is like right in the middle of all of this. And only to find out that, well, the Shot Spotter Alert, one of them that had gone off while I was producing the show, occurred, well, less than a half a block away from where I park my vehicle each and every morning here before we head into the office. And I quickly see the fact that there are bullet casing markers pretty much littered throughout the street at 5th and Grace here in downtown Wilmington. And at first I thought maybe another murder, a homicide, only to find out in talking with one of the local reporters who was getting some tape for the news broadcast later in the day, that apparently two vehicles crept up on one another and sprayed each other with bullets along with the rest of that neighborhood near 5th and Grace. And no one was injured, but kind of got the adrenaline flowing for the rest of the day, for me at least, because soon after that, as I made my way into the middle of town, coming up on the corner of College and Randall Parkway, well, I notice again about a dozen or so law enforcement officers at the scene right near the rooms to go at the entrance of UNCW, kind of perpendicular to the entrance over at UNCW. That's the second area where the Shot Spotter Alert sounded and brought my attention to my phone, only to find out, well, a panhandler apparently right at the corner of College and Randall, well, decided to pull a firearm on a cop. Again, no one was injured, But boy, oh boy, things are really starting to boil over here in the city of Wilmington, as they have been throughout many major cities across the country. Small, moderate sort of city dealing with big city problems, as we saw yesterday, and stemming from really the weekend, where yesterday, after both of those incidents occurred, maybe one connected, the fifth and Grace, in terms of the double homicide that played out on Middle Sound Loop back over the weekend. Well, yesterday, the sheriff and the district attorney decided they were going to hold a news conference at 2:30. So as I'm having lunch and still the adrenaline kind of pumping, knowing that, my car, and if I was maybe 10, 15 minutes earlier to my vehicle, if it wasn't a Wednesday and I hadn't been producing the show, I could have very well been in the middle of some crossfire, and it gets you thinking a little bit, given the fact that I feel relatively safe walking to the office each morning in the wee hours of the morning, and feel relatively safe still living in the neighborhood in which I reside. And you get in close contact with this sort of stuff, and I know for news reporters who go to crime scenes and others who are involved in this sort of day-to-day, it's kind of par for the course. Well, not me. Not used to, coming up on my vehicle to jump in the car, only to find out like 10 minutes before, well, that there was, a gun battle in the middle of the street between two passing cars. So a little unsettling. So then you get the news, of course, that the district attorney and the sheriff are going to hold a news conference and going to update us on the double homicide investigation. Well, it lasted all but 3 minutes, and as soon as one of the reporters from the area started pressing and pushing and prodding, well, they abruptly ended the news update, which involved no news and no update. Basically, what we got yesterday was scuttlebutt and word on the street that, well, there are talks of retaliation and violence continuing to, bubble up. So the idea, at least from what I saw yesterday, was that, well, let's bring the families of the victims who were shot, let's bring them together, put them in front of a camera, and let them plead to the public to stop the violence. Well, we haven't seen that before. Pleading for help and trying to solve this double murder, and using the families of, well, one gang member and the other who was shot and killed to plea for no more violence. Following that disgrace of a news conference yesterday, the family of the young girl who was shot and killed, they had some things to say. Now, of course, grieving, in shock. I don't even know if the grief has hit yet, more in shock that your 20-something-year-old daughter, niece, sister, whoever, is no longer here because they were in the middle of a, well, situation that led, of course, to their death, their tragic death, in a $1 million or so home in a neighborhood with, 0% crime. So they had some things to say, and you have to, take it for what it's worth, in that they're dealing with shock. But they did bring up some, valid points in regards to the for-profit business at the center of this. And that is True Colors Brewing. And this concept that validated gang members can work together to help deter gang violence. All we've seen in the area over the past year is an uptick in crime related to gang activity. And despite that, and despite what we know about the culture and how, involved you are once you're in, you still have some folks here in the area who, even talking with a few folks last night who are very well known in our community and have been here almost their whole lives, if not their entire lives. They've seen these sort of cyclical acts of violence, particularly within this gang culture that heats up, cools down, heats up, and in fact, the mayor not too long ago when there were gun battles in the streets on Carolina Beach Road near Echo Farms. The one on Mother's Day on Eastwood Road that led to the death of a man. Well, these things are sort of cyclical. We got to just wait it out and hope things cool down, that cooler heads will prevail eventually. And that's kind of the feeling that I got from talking with a few folks yesterday, that True Colors, their owners and their idea through this for-profit business that is yet to actually produce a can of beer for sale, that they can ultimately help if the idea is, okay, the economic opportunity and the job sustainability, one thing. At the end of the day, with the understanding that, well, doesn't seem like law enforcement members within the community are willing to do what needs to be done to really crack down on this sort of violence and culture. So the idea is, well, if we, not to the point where if we can't beat them, join them, but sort of along those lines, in that, well, if we bring them all together, and when the violence does start to heat up, well, we then are connected with some of the top dogs, so to speak, and they'll be able to work within their channels to try and keep this somewhat controlled. That's how it was kind of explained to me yesterday as far as the premise of the company that is in the middle of all of this crazy news that's been going on here over the past week. And when it comes to the violence, well, the numbers speak for itself. We had the highest number of homicides in the city of Wilmington on an annual basis in the year 2020 than at any other time in the city's recorded history. It is what it is. So kind of a little unnerving yesterday, walking up to the car to see all the police tape and the casings out there, and understanding that, just a few minutes leading up to me getting there, I could have been in the middle of a, frankly, crossfire. And that's a little uneasy for me to wrap my head around even this morning after a night's sleep. We'll give you the remarks made by the family of the young woman who was killed back on Saturday in the Middle Sound Loop area as we move through this first hour of the broadcast. There was a lot going on here yesterday. We've got the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization decision to not back or support or look into the idea of a privately funded toll bridge as a replacement to the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. And I'm not really sure why it was such big news, because all of a sudden everyone had headlines. Wilmington Metro Planning Organization turns down proposal to privately fund a toll bridge over the Cape Fear River. I don't know if how long you've been here or the brief amount of time that you've spent in the Wilmington area. But again, not really sure why the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization decision was so big last night, turning down this privately funded toll bridge. I've lived here for over 16 years, and discussions have supposedly been going on for 16 years on a replacement to the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. And over those 16 years, and even with the decision last night, we're no closer now than where we were 16 years ago to a replacement for the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. Sort of sounds a bit like a pipe dream, if you ask me. And now I get it. I heard we had a caller yesterday talking about the need and the want to expand our port. We've had conversations about moving the rail lines from inside the city limits to across the river into Brunswick County to help with that. Providing a little extra room, of course, for these massive ships to come in, not be deterred by a bridge, to help expand the growth of our port. All great ideas. Of course, the port, we don't necessarily directly benefit from things that come in and out as they roll into the banks of the Cape Fear River. So to me, of course, Well, why has our state government and our delegation here locally representing the area up in the North Carolina General Assembly, given the growth, given the want to expand the port and its landscape, why is this not a bigger priority up the list when it comes to the various projects that need to be funded when it comes to infrastructure? And that brings us to last night, of course, with a vote in the Senate that included support from both Senator Tillis and Senator Burr to back this massive $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. The Senate, in a 67-32 procedural vote, advanced the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. So that got it over the filibuster, which, of course, 60 votes to get in or move it forward when we talk about legislative proposals that include the appropriation of dollars. Senators Burr and Tillis move forward with support of the bill despite the fact that the full text of the proposal has not yet been made public. There's some talking points that you're hearing as far as large numbers go when it comes to what they'll be paying for here, there, and everywhere. Just to our south, Lindsey Graham also jumped on board with it as well. Senator Tim Scott was a no vote. And in large part, as he said yesterday, because there was no legislative text. His mind has not changed because there is still no legislative text or explanation on how we're going to move forward with another $1 trillion in spending. Now, we'll see how and where this all ends up in the next week or so. And that's not to say we just admitted here locally we need investment when it comes to infrastructure with this aging bridge and this pipe dream that we may one day get a replacement. 16 years have been here. We're no closer than we were 16 years ago when I first moved here to moving forward with that project. Private business comes in, says, we'll build it. We just want to put a toll there so we can recoup some of the dollars that we invest into a massive infrastructure project. That was turned down yesterday. Not the biggest guy when it comes to tolls, though, I got to say, as I've made mention before. Going out to Charlotte, that new toll road that takes about a half hour off of your drive, and then you get something in the mail a week later that says you owe $7. I don't necessarily mind it. Now, for folks that need to frequent over the Cape Fear River day to day on a daily basis with a toll, there are alternate routes, of course, which may take you a little longer. And even if it were to move forward, we're still talking 20 or so years down the road. So many of the Republicans up in Washington who voted against the infrastructure bill yesterday, Senators Tillis and Burr not included, as they expressed support for the plan. Well, many of the Republicans out there are concerned that if we move forward with this $1.2 trillion bill, you're essentially giving the green light without, of course, the legislative text and the details, because we all know in Washington, D.C., the devil is in the details when it comes to these massive spending bills and all the other little nuggets lawmakers put in there so then they can come back, maybe even here with Senator Tillis. Now, Senator Burr, of course, retiring at the end of his term, and not one that has been, very vocal or available to the media or his constituency during, his better part of 20 years up as a senator in Washington, D.C., to North Carolinians, all in the while, of course, dumping off millions of dollars in stock before the start of the pandemic. Never mind all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, Senator Tillis supports it, and then all of a sudden, look at all this funding we just approved in Washington, and yes, we have the money now to move forward with plans to replace the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. Well, I think that would turn some folks over to the side of supporting someone like Senator Tillis, even those on the right and the left, if you're able to work out something that would prove to be massively beneficial to our region here in the state of North Carolina. But we don't know if it includes anything of that sort because there is no legislative text. Essentially, they moved forward with a procedural vote yesterday, passing the bill before reading it to an extent. And we know those famous words from, well, Speaker Pelosi her first time around. We have to pass Obamacare to find out what's in it. And the Republicans who are in opposition to this idea of moving forward with a plan without having the details say, well, this will ultimately clear the way for Democrats to put together another proposal that will focus on programs related to, well, the Green New Deal, and then adding another layer to the already ballooned welfare state in our country. In that once you get the Republicans on board with this one, you'll be able to ramrod something through later in the day, later in the game, that is focused solely on our agenda. So we'll see if these Republicans are being played or if, in fact, their good intentions turn out to be beneficial to me and you, the American taxpayer. I think we all know where that will end up. But we'll call it as it is right now, and we'll leave it at B. Stay tuned. We're 27 minutes past the hour. All the news you need to know in, well, one segment here this morning on the Big Talker FM. Great to be with you here today. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
You're not using Culex variety mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Take back your yard.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Attention patriots, listen in to hear President Trump explain why Ted Budd is the right choice for United States Senate.
There's somebody that I think is very special, somebody that I've worked with, always been with me. This man's a great politician, but more importantly, he's somebody that loves the state of North Carolina. He loves the country. But this gentleman is going to be your next senator. He's going to be somebody that you're going to be so proud of. He will fight like hell. He will fight like nobody fights. And a lot of you don't know him that well, but you're going to know him. Ted Budd.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement. We're going to work with him. We're going to campaign with him. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races and do not stand for our values. So I'm going with Congressman Ted Budd, complete and total endorsement.
I'm Ted Budd, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Ted Budd for Senate. See the video at tedbudd.com.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join myself and Kevin Adams every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker for a fun, uplifting conversation about the upside of upside-down living.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Another great group of guests scheduled to join the program over the next couple of hours. We'll kick it off with my friend Matt Treppel. He's the regional director here in southeastern North Carolina for the organization known as Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Matt recently took a group of kids up to the mountains for a mission trip, and this week-long hiatus into the mountains over the summer is an annual thing that FCA does for the area. And some of the details of what they were up to and some of the values that they continue to instill in our young school-age children through their organization and work, leadership qualities, all things we probably should be putting more focus on when it comes to guiding our young people. Matt will be with us just after 8 o'clock this morning from Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Looking forward to that conversation. It's been a while since Matt and I have been able to catch up. We'll also hear from Grover Norquist in the second hour of our show. Grover, of course, is the president of the organization known as Americans for Tax Reform. We got news yesterday that the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, news that we've been telling you for quite some time, ahead of the curve, as we typically are. Well, labor shortages and the printing of money and the slowdown in the global supply chain. Well, inflation is here and here to stay. In fact, the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, said yesterday that inflation could be more aggressive and last longer than the expectations put forth by, those in government and than what we've been predicting in the central bank. Also added that the quote-unquote generous unemployment benefits have been contributing to people not working. And it's not hard to see that. Look at the states that have pulled back from the federal assistance when it comes to unemployment benefits and see how their employment numbers have risen while those who continue to utilize that assistance, North Carolina being one of those states, how those employment numbers have remained pretty much stagnant. Consumer prices increased 5.4% for the year ending in the month of June, meaning you're paying more on average for a consumer product by about 5% than you were at this time last year. That's the highest rate of inflation since the Great Recession. The figure well above what the quote-unquote experts had been predicting. So this problem with inflation, well, Grover looks at it as, what it is, essentially a tax increase. Joe Biden's first and biggest tax increase on the middle class. It strips away the buying power and confidence of consumers, which prevents the economy from moving forward. You look at all the other issues with supply chain and the labor shortages, and you're just piling onto the problem. So you get back to work, they give you a 5% raise. But with 9% inflation, the net effect is, effectively, a 4% cut in wages. About 80% out there of those polled believe that inflation is a problem and one that will weigh heavy on their finances in the months ahead. We'll talk with Grover on this very important topic when he joins us just after 8:30. And another friend of mine will be with us to round out the program, Coach Joe Moglia. He's the former CEO of TD Ameritrade. He helped broker the merger between Ameritrade and Charles Schwab not too long ago. He stepped away from his duties as the Coastal Carolina University football coach a couple of years back. Coach rang the bell on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street on Wednesday. We'll be talking about the financial markets, inflation, and also given our connection and ties to college football, of course, this recent decision to allow college athletes to profit from their name, image, and likeness. We'll get Coach's thoughts on how that will impact the game and those young people involved in a very popular and profitable sport in the world of college football. And we'll highlight those topics with Coach Joe Moglia to round out the program just after 9:30 this morning. We'll get some local news, and we'll get back to all the craziness that ensued here in the city of Wilmington yesterday. It was the wild, wild west here in the city of Wilmington. And then, well, our top elected officials in terms of law enforcement held a 5-minute news conference, and we got in gots. We know nothing more than we knew the morning that we woke up and learned of this tragic situation and double homicide that took place in the Middle Sound area. We'll cover those topics when we get back. If you'd like to chime in, 910-299-7535. I was also on a wild goose chase this morning for a cup of coffee. All I need is a hard roll with some butter, and I'd be all straight. Wild goose chase, looking for a cup of coffee at 5:30 in the morning here in Wilmington. We'll be back.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A tsunami watch has been issued for Hawaii following a large earthquake off the Alaska Peninsula. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center listed the magnitude as 8.1 and said, quote, an investigation is underway to determine if there is a tsunami threat to Hawaii. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was magnitude 8.2 and hit 56 miles east-southeast of Perryville, Alaska. In Washington today, President Joe Biden is set to announce that federal employees must show proof they've received a coronavirus vaccine or submit to regular testing and stringent social distancing, masking, and travel restrictions. The president hopes to use the federal workforce as a model for employers nationwide. Those familiar with details of the plan emphasize that the new guidance is not a vaccine mandate for federal employees, and those who decide not to get vaccinated aren't at risk of being fired. Many are wondering the fate of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge ever since an unsolicited proposal was submitted to replace it with a toll bridge. Yesterday, the Wilmington Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization discussed the possibility of further exploring the public-private option of replacing the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge with a toll bridge. Following a long discussion, the board voted to not support the exploration of the toll bridge. The motion passed 7-5. This means the proposal will not go any further. Plans to replace the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge are not clear at this time. And the last private-owned and undeveloped barrier island off our state's coast will now be protected forever. The North Carolina Coastal Land Trust has purchased Hootaf Island, located in southern Pender County. The 2.5-mile-long beach and the associated 1,000 acres of salt marsh provides a first line of defense against storms for residents. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be another hot one in the Cape Fear with temperatures getting into the low to middle 90s inland of the coast. Coastal communities will top off in the middle and the upper 80s. And we are going to see a good deal of dry time with mostly sunny skies, but heat index values approaching the triple digits once again this afternoon. Tonight, though, mostly clear skies in store for us, and temperatures fall down to the middle and the upper 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Also, last night, as my nerves were finally starting to calm after a pop or two, it was a wild day in the wild, wild west of Wilmington on Wednesday. So finally, getting settled down, playing some cards with Sophia and my lovely wife, flipping through the TV. She's yelling at me, "Joe, I thought you stopped working. Get off your phone. It's 9:30 at night." And finally, put the phone away And I'm flipping through the TV, and I see, of course, the Olympic Games going on a couple of the channels, NBC-owned stations. And for all intents and purposes, through the first week of the Summer Games, you haven't really caught my attention for one reason or the other. And I even flipped it off of the Yankees game last night. I was just not thinking the ways in which I'm typically trying to settle in, before catching some Z's and jumping back on here to do what we get to do each day. And I have to say, yesterday, the Olympic Games, for about a 20-minute period, it caught my attention. What was the event, you say? Who were the countries playing? Well, it was France versus Fiji in women's rugby. And it caught my attention for 25 minutes. So stayed with it. And I got to say, my buddy K.O. Davis with Coast to Coast Tree Service, he took me over to the Cape Fear Sevens rugby tournament a couple of weeks ago over at the soccer park on Highway 421. And I'm enamored. A new sport, very competitive, form tackling, by the way. And anyone who played football as a kid growing up, Pop Warner football, form tackling, square up, head up, shoulder into torso. And boy, oh boy, were those ladies roughing each other up, and I was entertained. That was entertaining. Some women's rugby. That's what caught my attention yesterday as I'm flipping through the Tokyo Games. 910-299-7535 is our number if you'd like to call in. Not my personal number, but it's the call-in number for our studio. And caller, are you there? Good morning. Maybe you're not. Well, you're more than welcome to call in, of course, at 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show. Do want to give a big round of applause to the folks who volunteer with the Cape Fear River Watch. Came across a post of theirs on social media the other day. Cigarettes and balloons and beer cans, oh my. The Riverfront Amphitheater, and thus the river, are in need of our help. Making a call to action a week and a half after the opening act at our new $20+ million taxpayer-funded amphitheater and park. You say, balloons? Oh, yeah. As I was driving around downtown Wilmington over the weekend where widespread panic is in town, there are CO2 tanks going off everywhere around the area. And all of a sudden, you'll see someone walking around with 5 balloons in their hands, inhaling it, eliminating millions of brain cells with every huff. And those balloons somehow, some way found their way, who would have thought, onto the lawn of our beautiful new park and, into the marsh and the Cape Fear River. Concert goers just can't seem to locate a trash can. Though, with that being said, one of the cons of, and one of the negative things that some of the concert goers I was bringing to and from all weekend, these are seasoned concert goers and festival attendees. In fact, they're back out into Asheville, I think, next week to go see Panic again, literally from all over the region, meaning the southeastern part of the United States. I think one of the things that kind of baffled us was the lack of trash cans in the facility for people to utilize. So the Cape Fear River Watch and their volunteers will be spending time this Sunday cleaning up the park a week and a half after opening night. My quick question here would be, well, why do we have to go and volunteer our time to clean up after a paid event? Shouldn't the city and the event manager, Live Nation, be responsible for keeping this clean? Perhaps maybe that should be written into their contracts. Or did our city officials not think that far ahead? I think we know the answer to that question. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe.
How are we doing this morning?
Hey, pretty good. I just had two things. One, on the concert with the Widespread Panic, my son and I went, and I grew up listening to him, and he's 16, and I just kind of wanted to get him that experience. He's never seen a concert, but there's so much. Just the amount of all you smelled was marijuana. The whole freaking place full of marijuana. And I'm not, hey, smoke your pot, do your thing, do it at home, do it in the car before you go to the. But we were so exposed to. There was so much drug use going on during that concert. It was awesome.
Well,
like all around us. My son's 16 years old. It's a family event. God, there was no police enforcement walking around like checking on that. Just for that aspect of it. That's the first thing. The second thing is on the shooting. It kind of reminds me of the mass shooting. We still never heard anything about that, and we probably will not hear anything about this shooting in Ogden. It just will not be. It'll be pushed under the rug again, And at the end of the day, when they find out who did it, unfortunately, Joe. And listen, I'm Latino, Joe. I'm not. This has nothing to do with race, but it's going to wind up being another African American that did it. And where's Black Lives Matter in their neighborhood? They need to go, build up their own neighborhoods. They're the ones killing each other. It's very apparent. Yet, I don't know. It's just frustrating to see them do what they do, and all of it get pushed under the rug by our city officials. God forbid that been somebody else outside of an African American that went in and shot that house up and killed those people. So, and True Colors Brewing, where do you buy a True Colors Brewing beer? Never even seen one.
Well,
do
yes,
they sell it?
They have not. No, they have not yet manufactured a can of beer for sale. They've gotten some endorsements and some partnerships with Molson Coors, and it's been in operation, or at least it's been getting ready to be operational for the last couple of years. They've been getting a lot of praise in the community, but now that we have a lot of questions, and no one seems to be willing to step up and answer some of these, concerns that, frankly, people have, including the family of this young woman who, was shot and killed the other night.
And one more thing before I go, Joe. They got $1.5 million endorsement from our federal government. That brewing did. Okay, in 2019, guy owned the house. We all know that house got shot or somebody or whatever. So there's something going on here, Joe. These guys, they got to be held accountable. The owner of this outfit, and I think it's all a sham. I think it's a cover up, and he got $1.5 million to sponsor gang initiative from our state of North Carolina and Governor Cooper. So look into that. I looked into it and I tracked it down. And $1.5 million this True Colors Brewery got to help bring in and bring the gangs together and blah blah blah, which is just a bunch of, it's just, I don't know, it's frustrating.
No question.
So just that's my 2 cents, Joe, and I hope you have a great day, and thanks for all you do for our community.
And thank you for the call, and feel free to share your 2 cents anytime you would like with us here on the Big Talker FM. This is the story of the month, and an eye-opening one, of course, and for some in the community, particularly in areas that, well, I don't want to say it, but are used to this sort of violence and these types of crimes. They're probably sitting here and saying, well, finally, you're getting a little taste of what we've got to deal with in our inner cities on a day-to-day basis. And, well, rightfully so. Getting a little taste at the park formerly known as Hugh McRae in Middle Sound Loop. A party held at a home that, well, no one really knows what the hell went on in there prior to the mass shooting that occurred on Kidder Street. And again, still, not much information. And yesterday, the DA and the sheriff come out, and we thought we'd get an update or, something. How about, well, the identity and the status and the condition of the third person who was shot, whom, from what I've gathered, is recovering and has, now no longer in the hospital. So there's no details surrounding anything. And, then, of course, it's all scuttlebutt and rumors and speculation, which does not really bring any confidence to the public that our elected officials are getting a handle on the situation. And then yesterday, of course, we got the shot spotter alert sounding off. It went off for 25 minutes straight yesterday around lunchtime. We had a panhandler pull a gun on a cop right near the entrance of UNCW, South College and Randall, and over at 5th and Grace right here, right where I park my car every morning for work. In that vicinity, within a half block of where it went down, I'm walking up and I'm like, oh, what went on over here? I was looking for a dead body, frankly. That's where my mind immediately went. Oh, another murder. This one kind of close. It was, two cars passing by one another, spraying bullets at each other in broad daylight at 5th and Grace. And then our top elected law enforcement officials step to the podium and they send a plea for help and then bring the families of those deceased who then make a plea to stop the violence. I mean, it's just, as some say, the activity and violence is cyclical within these sorts of cultures. Well, I would say the response, cyclical, same as it ever was. And I don't know that there's something you could do about it when it comes down to it, how you go in there, and you hear a lot about the police and their military-style vehicles. That is what you'd probably have to do to disrupt some of this sort of stuff. And it was explained to me yesterday as the family of one of the young girls who was shot and killed in Middletown last week, they had some things to say yesterday about True Colors Brewing. And, again, in shock, in grief, all sorts of things can come out of your mouth that when you're trying to wrap your head around the fact that you lost your child or your sister or your niece to gang violence and gun violence. And they point out something that we've talked about, the concept that we're going to bring together in a for-profit business validated gang members to work with one another to deter gang activity. And kind of baffling to the family, grieving and in shock right now. And I think to a lot of you out there as well, this concept. And then there are folks who I've talked with last night, very influential people in our community who feel that the efforts that this company had been making and that for what they have gathered and have seen, the family involved in developing this concept, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're going to lunch with their employees. They're becoming friendly with them. And that ultimately their idea, because it is a system of hierarchy, of course. You've seen The Godfather when Frankie Pantangeli comes in to testify in front of Michael Corleone, and they've got it all listed down on the top guy all the way down to the street thug and how it works. So this concept at True Colors is, we bring in some of the top guys, and they are able to calm down situations when they bubble up, as we're seeing now. That's kind of how it was explained to me last night as I was trying to settle in. Let's take a time out if you want to get involved. Of course, our number is 910-299-7535. We'll talk with our friend Matt Treppel of Fellowship of Christian Athletes in just a bit. Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform, going to be talking about the inflation tax that we're all paying right now at the tune of, 5% increase from this time last year on average consumer goods. And with those inflation numbers set to increase over the next few months, that's according to the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, who made a statement yesterday on inflation and the generous unemployment benefits that have kept people out of the workforce. Looking forward to that conversation with Grover Norquist of Americans for Tax Reform just after 8:30. We'll be back.
Baby, do you understand me now? Sometimes I feel a little mad, but Don't you know that no one alive can always be an angel? When things go wrong, I'll see you be back. I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Oh, according to research, 82% of people remember radio ads. That means that 82% of you listening right now will remember that this is an ad for ZipRecruiter. If you're hiring, 82% of you will recall that ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster and easier. And 82% of you will note that you can try ZipRecruiter for free today. But you have to go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Yes, free. 82% of you will keep in mind that ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified people for your job and actively invites them to apply.
Is that you? Who are you talking to?
82% of you will also know that I, live with my mom. But the most important thing to note is that ZipRecruiter works. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Will you be part of the 82% who remember where you can try ZipRecruiter for free? It's ZipRecruiter.com/free. Again, that exclusive link is ZipRecruiter.com/free. How much? Free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
With a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men in a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men in a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomenandatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
All right, as we head up into the top of the hour, along with some of the violence and crime that we saw play out yesterday, the news conference that really provided no news in terms of what occurred last weekend up in the Middle Sound area. There was also another big meeting last night that got a lot of attention in terms of this toll bridge proposal that would be privately funded. Well, the Wilmington Metro Planning Organization will not be supporting that proposal to build a privately funded toll bridge as a new crossing over the Cape Fear River. Not sure why that was such big news. As I said earlier in the hour, I've lived here for 16 years, and discussions have supposedly been going on for 16 years on a replacement to the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. We are no closer now than we were 16 years ago to moving forward with any sort of project. Well, will the infrastructure bill that Senator Tillis and Burr got behind yesterday, will that include any funding that would help with our area? Well, they're supporting the bill without even seeing the text of the bill, because the The way Washington goes, you have to pass the bill before you, the American taxpayer, can find out what's in it. Matt Treppel joins us next.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Coronavirus vaccine or submit to regular testing and stringent social distancing, masking, and travel restrictions. The president is hoping to use the federal workforce as a model for employers nationwide. Work will begin on a nearly $1 trillion national infrastructure package thanks to a Senate vote to begin the process. GOP Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana says the infrastructure package will be good for Americans.
We're talking about roads, we're talking about process, and about, man, isn't it great that the Senate's working? But what's really great is that family at home where that pipe fitter is going to have a job, that construction worker is going to have a job, that person who just organizes things, she's going to have a better job, and there's going to be tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of jobs created, and their commutes will be better, their homes will be more secure, they'll be weatherized, and I could go down the list.
Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia says the package is a big deal for the nation.
Nothing of this monumental task has been done in 30 years. We have not made a major investment in the infrastructure of the United States of America for the last 30 years. First time. And when you see the bipartisanship here, bipartisanship is built because of relationships. Relationships are built when there's trust. And the more we continue to do things such as this, the more you'll see more bipartisanship.
It's unclear if enough senators will eventually support final passage. Japanese officials have sounded the alarm as Tokyo reported record-breaking coronavirus cases for the third straight day, with the Olympics well underway. Tokyo reporting 3,865 new cases on Thursday. On Wall Street, Dow futures are up 128 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
With the Democratic sweep officially in place, we are now at the mercy of tax and spend economics. Get ready for runaway national debt pushing the further devaluation of the dollar. So if you haven't invested in gold, now is the time to protect your savings. Birch Gold Group is the premier precious metals IRA company in America. With an A+ BBB rating and thousands of satisfied customers, Birch Gold can help you move an eligible IRA or 401k into an IRA backed by gold. Go to birchgold.com/radio for your free information kit. That's birchgold.com/radio.
The Federal Reserve is keeping its benchmark interest rate pegged near zero, but says the economy is strengthening.
The Fed says the U.S. economy is making progress toward the central bank's employment and inflation goals. That's being interpreted as a small step closer to dialing back the ultra-low interest rate policies that have been in place since the coronavirus pandemic hit. In a statement, the Fed says vaccinations are helping the recovery, but it dropped a reference to a reduction in the spread of COVID-19 as the Delta variant has caused a spike in cases, creating several hotspots around the country. Ben Thomas, Washington.
British-Swedish drug maker AstraZeneca says it intends to seek U.S. authorization for its COVID-19 vaccine in the second half of this year. The company offered a new timetable for the much-delayed application today while releasing its second quarter financial results. AstraZeneca reports the company and its sub-licensees delivered more than 700 million doses. News and analysis at townhall.com. A new poll shows a majority of Americans blame Democratic policies for the skyrocketing inflation facing the country.
Americans noticing that their hard-earned paychecks aren't stretching as far as they once were, as the cost of everyday goods like gas and groceries continue to skyrocket. Unfortunately for Senate Democrats, a new Morning Consult political poll shows that nearly 6 out of 10 Americans place the blame for record-high inflation squarely at Democrats' feet. The National Republican Senatorial Committee says the Democrats' agenda of reckless spending, job-killing tax hikes, and paying people to stay home rather than go to work is having a widespread negative impact on middle-class families. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
At the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, the women's all-around gymnastics final is underway without reigning champion Simone Biles. Biles pulled out of the competition to focus on her mental health, and that leaves the bid for the gold medal wide open. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
All right, somehow, some way, it's 7 minutes past 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning in the middle of summer, and I've been able to pull our next guest off of his surfboard to join us to talk about all the great things that he's been up to here in the area, trying to contribute in a positive manner to our young people coming up through our education system and through their efforts with an organization known as Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Matt Treppel, you can catch him pretty much every morning around sunrise on the wake in Carolina Beach, probably somewhere. Is that where you're at, Matt, typically most mornings if they'd like to get in touch with you?
Yes, sir. We'll have board meetings.
So how does a guy from Jersey, that goes to William Patterson University, plays football, and was up to all and who knows what during those days, how does that guy turn into, a surfer dude?
No comment on that first part, but I grew up on the beach, so we were always at the beach, and being in the water was a thing. So when I got down here, it was naturally to get the board going again. Get the board back out there and, board sessions, board meetings.
All day.
As much as possible.
Yeah, no doubt. You've got 3 daughters, 2 at college at this point, 1 at App, the other in Carolina.
Yeah, yep. They're getting old on me.
And
I keep staying younger, but I don't know how that happens, but I'll take it.
I mean, well, you put in the time and the work to do so, and I could see it through all the pictures and all the other sorts of stuff you're up to, and you're working with young people, so that kind of keeps you young as well.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Through Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and speaking of athletes, one person who always talks about faith, upbringing through family structure is a professional athlete here in our area who recently finished his rookie year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. His name's Alex Highsmith. He graduated from Ashley High School, walked on at UNC Charlotte, and ended up becoming, a 3rd or 4th round draft pick with the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. Had a great rookie season at training camp now with the Steelers moving into this year. Alex, his family, a little bit about what he's about. We talk about, his kind of maturation, because when I saw him at Ashley High School years ago, not the last person, but I didn't think anyone from Ashley High School on a football field would be playing professional football, let alone starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers anytime, in the future.
Well, I'll tell you one, a couple things there. One, perseverance. He had a dream, a desire, and he put the work in. And on his faith-wise, Ryan Glover, who's our FCA rep at UNC Charlotte, had a great deal to do with mentoring him and walking him through, and so that part of faith, along with the mental aspect of what it takes, he really got to a high level, and there he is now. And this whole area should be proud of him, and all young kids should take note. The hard work is what has to be put in, and it is not just the physical aspect, it's the mental aspect. And of course, we at FCA tie in the spiritual aspect of it.
Well, we talk, there's plenty of negative that we discuss here day to day within this program. Anytime you bring government, news, politics into the conversation, it quickly can turn negative on you. So this is why I brought you in to kind of change the mode here for a few minutes and bring some positive news to the people who tune in each and every day for the work that Fellowship of Christian Athletes does not only here in this area but all over the country on many college campuses, throughout many of the local schools. We've talked about the hesitancy in certain areas throughout the country to not go in on Fellowship of Christian Athletes because of this stigma or this stereotype of way of looking at what you do and why you do it. How do you rebuff people that are maybe on the fence as to getting involved with your organization or introducing their kids to this sort of lifestyle?
Well, I'll tell you, no time like right now, because our kids are being taught a lot of things, but one is that mediocrity is a level to strive for. And it's okay. And the excuses, the compromise, the justify and rationalize and being less than you're called to be. So that's where we come in. Sports is the biggest platform, right or wrong. Sports is such a huge influence. And so we meet athletes where they're at and coaches.
And that was one of the big things that you had talked about in previous conversations that we've had on and off the air, is that really engaging the coaches as ones that can be the mentors. And I can remember, and maybe it's just my way of life. I remember, and not to bash educators and teachers, and I was a slacker. There's no denying any of that until I got to college. My coaches oftentimes had much more influence in keeping me on the straight and narrow than my history or literature teacher.
Absolutely. And again, like you said, not to bash educators, but as when you are an athlete and there's millions and millions of kids playing sports, right? Two words that are so indelible to a young person is coach says. Coach says I need to do this. Coach says I need to do that. Coach says I need to study. Coach says I need to pay attention to classroom. Coach says I need to have attendance. They're listening to the coach because the coach holds the keys, because of the desire. And again, right or wrong, in our country, well, this whole world, the influences of athletics. So if there's that influence, the coach. So we are to and through the coach. We want to minister and help and come alongside the coach where they're at, which is what we do a lot of, and therefore enables them to coach in a way that really, as Dabo Sweeney talked at our banquet a few years ago, to the coaches in our area that were invited, he said, the athleticism will take care of itself. We coach their heart. The kid has to know that we care about them as a person and not just their athleticism.
Well, with that said, there is obviously a balance there. Not everyone is going to go on scholarship to play football for Dabo Sweeney at Clemson University. A good portion, like 99% of kids who play sports at the youth level or then at high school, are not going to play sports or be an athlete after high school. If you get an opportunity to go to that next level, you're really in that fine, 1, 2, 3% of all kids that participate, from youth until they're 18 years old. So that balance that you work in through Fellowship of Christian Athletes, talk about how that kind of works, and kind of setting real expectations for their kids and their parents, frankly.
Well, as you know, when they say that professional athlete in the major sports within 3 years after retirement, there'll be one end of 2 or 3 things: broke, divorced, or addicted to something. And why? Their identity. All right, so we come in and first and foremost, your identity, who God says you are. And that is first and foremost that you're created in his image and that you're worthy. He gives you purpose. And regardless of what happens on your life, he'll never leave you, never forsake you. He loves you unconditionally. It's important because kids so much are conditioned that their identity and their success or not is based on their performance. And as you just said, and when I used to work at UNC Wilmington, I tell athletes, look, 3.5% at the time was all high school athletes, 3.5% will play on the Division I level. And then from there, as you said, how many more will be professionals, right? So they strive and excel, and you want them to, because you want to be able to take that to every aspect of their life, that God has a purpose for them beyond the playing field, and how important it is for them to know their worth will always be there regardless of their performance.
Matt Treppel is with Fellowship of Christian Athletes here within southeastern North Carolina. Matt, how many chapters, so to speak, huddles do you guys put together across our broadcast region of New Hanover, Brunswick, and Pender counties? how can parents, grandparents, others who may be tuned in, shine some light on your organization to kids that may need some guidance and well, I would say a smack in the back of the head, but nonetheless, that's not what you do. You do it in a different way. But how can people learn more, and how available is this group to kids out there?
Well, when Joe, you mentioned about huddles, as you call them. We have close to 100, and when I say 100, we're in the majority of middle school and high schools in those 3 counties, as well as our area for Southeast North Carolina FCA, also in Columbus and Bladen. And those huddles are team huddles. So meeting the kids where they are, and the impact that 15 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour before or after practice, where obviously it's voluntarily, but also you have kids listening who are just hanging out because they're waiting for a ride or something, that impact. And so there's such an opportunity for the kids. And as far as how parents get involved, well, Southeast NCFCA is our website, and we'll be putting out there probably starting today. We'll be having all-time great UNC basketball player Phil Ford will be speaking at our banquet September 18th, which is a fundraiser, because we're 100% based on individuals that are investing in the ministry to pay for the expenses. So the website, Facebook page, Southeast NCFCA as well, and Instagram, and that's and they are more than welcome to go on the website, and there's a phone number that they can call our admin assistant for any information that they're looking for.
Matt Treppel is with the Southeast North Carolina Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Again, this 501c3 organization reaching out to local coaches, student athletes within our area, within the middle and high schools. If you did not know that, our education system, for all it is, has been open to this idea, unlike many other school districts across the country. As there's controversy, quote unquote, that comes along with FCA every once in a while when someone's feathers are ruffled because someone's talking about image and likeness through the big guy upstairs rather than whatever they want to guide their kids through. That's why it becomes controversial all of a sudden. There are so many different other things that you do, including a trip. This is why I wanted to invite you on to begin with, was the fact that I saw that you were up in the mountains not too long ago as part of an FCA leadership camp. You've got different camps, retreats that go on throughout the course of the year. What went on in that camp? How many kids were involved? And what's the purpose of going up in the mountains and hanging out with one another for a week?
Right. And let me just say there are a lot of camps. And one camp, I don't want to call it camp, that is a big investment for those who give into FCA is our couples retreat, giving our coaches opportunity, them and their spouse, to spend time at Billy Graham's The Cove, where it's 5-star. They get to, as you know, a coach never takes off, and so that is we have had coaches' wives tell us how impactful it has been for their marriage and for their family. So we just had that last month. Clyde Christensen, the quarterback coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was the guest speaker. So 2 weeks ago, leadership camp, we invite kids. We ask coaches, who do you see that has the potential to be a leader or is a leader that you would like for us to invest in? And so we have middle school and high school, 300 kids up there. My position was a huddle leader coordinator, which is mostly college athletes who are the leaders, since they're the influence. They're the ones that are looked up at. And so they are the biggest influence of those kids. And so, therefore, they're learning about God. They're learning about Jesus. They're learning about who they are. They're learning about what it takes to be a teammate, to be someone who excels. And I got on the stage first day and said, you are not mediocre. God says you are a masterpiece created for excellence. And that's the mindset you need to have in everything that you do. And to have that culture established on their teams by how they go about the expectations are themselves.
Like you said, and to bring this thing full circle at the beginning of this, in a time where we are okay with our children and with us, frankly, being mediocre, just getting by, to establish that type of fundamental mindset in a child is not necessarily going to work out. And I'm not saying that they won't end up being productive members of our society and won't go on and try and do great things. my whole thought would be, well, why aren't we, not that it's a false narrative or a false hope, but why are we not instilling those, very basic fundamental tenets that, frankly, my parents were able to get into my head at one point or another. I strayed off the path a couple of 200 times, but you find your way back.
Yes.
And I credit that due to the fact that there were fundamentals instilled as a young person that, eventually a light bulb went off and I was able to straighten myself out.
Well, you hit the point that it's not being taught. It's acceptable now to make excuses, acceptable to be less but who you were created to be. And so establish a culture by continually feeding them truth, and then continue to hold them that expectation. I mean, you think about a coach who says, yes, you can. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to be disciplined. You have to work, but you will attain this. And when you do attain it, you'll experience and be satisfied of achieving, right? And that's something that we continue trying to instill through who God says they are, try to establishing the culture, them being responsible and accountable to each other and accountable to who God says they are.
Folks, there are great people who do great things, not only in our community, but all over our state and country. They don't get highlighted enough, which is why, in due part, I wanted to invite Matt here this morning to talk more about his organization, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the Southeast North Carolina version of this worldwide group that impacts tens of thousands of young people's lives on a daily basis. You can find out more about what they do at southeastncfca.org. That's southeastncfca.org. And Matt, I'm not going to lie, I take something from you and talk about it all the time, particularly in this world where we're trying to keep everyone in a group and make it all collective, and that you once told me that there are billions of people in this world, and you're the only one with the same thumbprint as you're the only one with thumbprint and the fingerprint that you have on your hands. And if that doesn't, crush all arguments as far as individuality and individual responsibility and the ability to understand that you are unique and you were created, in this special light. That there's nothing else to deny that. The debate over, drop the microphone, because there's no way you can come back from that, very basic and simple statement.
Truth doesn't change.
SoutheastNCFCA.org. Matt Treppel with us here this morning. All right, Matt, high tide's coming in a couple of hours, so jump out there. I didn't mean to take you from your morning surf.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for always having me on.
That's Matt Treppel of the Southeast North Carolina Fellowship of Christian Athletes. SoutheastNCFCA.org, their website. We're 23 minutes past the hour. We've got time for a couple of calls if you'd like to join in. Our number is 910-299-7535.
Anywhere near Oak Island, come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. They're on Oak Island. You're going to find the latest in Oak Island lighthouses, nautical charms, pendants. You're going to find bracelets, turtle charms, anything in the jewelry genre you need, you can get there. And if they don't have it, they'll find a way to get it for you. Come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. And if you tell them you heard it on the Big Talker FM, an extra 10% off your purchase, but only at Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. The lowest prices in town. Come check us out today.
Hey guys, there is some important news that all men should take very seriously. Your prostate health. Are you urinating more frequently? Are you waking up at night to urinate? Are you sick and tired of prostate pills that just don't work? Sound familiar? If you are one of the millions of men with prostate problems that are driving you nuts, there is some great news. Prostagenics is the all-natural product that beat over 157 other prostate supplements in lab tests and was rated the #1 most powerful prostate supplement in the world. #1, because it works. So why not try some Prostagenics, and your prostate troubles will be a thing of the past. You'll get a great night's sleep and stop waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. To get your free bottle of Prostagenics, call now, 800-600-2020. That's 1-800-600-2020. Take advantage of our 90-day money-back guarantee. Call 800-600-2020. Do it now.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles inculeata mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit bugnopestcontrol.com. Take back your yard.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I want to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly overregulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune in to Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Well, it's been a crazy last couple of days internally from a technical standpoint. So yesterday we had issues with the radio tower. Today our streaming computer decides it's going to automatically update at some point over the last couple of hours. It's like you kind of wonder as the day-to-day operator of this small independently owned thing we've got going on here, the host, the producer, well, frankly, I guess the engineer and programmer as well on some occasions. It's like TK, do you do anything around here? I'm just kidding, TK. He's not listening because I know he's got another side gig, which is why it took me a few extra minutes to get the stream back up today. I want to thank a few of our listeners for pointing out that to us here this morning, that our audio stream on our website and through the app was down. Should be back up and running right now. Just hit the reset button here this morning for you. A guy who wears many hats in this little thing we got going on here across southeastern North Carolina. You know it as the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Or as we move into the bottom of the hour, don't you feel a little, at least a little more refreshed and a little more upbeat when you hear a guy like Matt Treppel and the work that Fellowship of Christian Athletes puts forth on a day-to-day basis, trying to influence our young kids through this idea of faith, perseverance, hard work, athletics, and education. That's not to say everyone is an athlete. You could insert said extracurricular activity in that in place of athletics, and you can find your kid in a real good place along with you as well. There are great things going on around our community, and we wanted to spend some time here this morning to highlight that before we go back to, well, the doom and gloom of big government. And Grover Norquist is going to provide us an update on big government and the inflation tax that all of us are experiencing right now at the tune of, 5.4% for average consumer goods. You're paying more at the tune of 5.4% than you were at this time last year. And the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said yesterday that inflation is going to be worse than what we originally expected and longer than we had anticipated. And that these generous unemployment benefits are not doing anyone any good when it comes to getting people back into the workforce. So that was from the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell yesterday. Grover Norquist will talk about this inflation issue that we're dealing with, labor shortage, supply chain disruptions, the printing of more dollars. Got an infrastructure bill that has garnered bipartisan support somehow. Encouraging support for the bill without reading its legislative text. And why? Well, the legislative text has not yet been released, but it has the support of our two senators, in Senator Tillis and Senator Burr. Not to say we don't need updates and massive investment into infrastructure. How about we read?
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A tsunami watch has been issued for Hawaii following a large earthquake off the Alaska Peninsula. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center listed the magnitude as 8.1 and said, quote, an investigation is underway to determine if there is a tsunami threat to Hawaii. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was magnitude 8.2 and hit 56 miles east-southeast of Perryville, Alaska. In Washington today, President Joe Biden is set to announce that federal employees must show proof they've received a coronavirus vaccine or submit to regular testing and stringent social distancing, masking, and travel restrictions. The president hopes to use the federal workforce as a model for employers nationwide. Those familiar with details of the plan emphasize that the new guidance is not a vaccine mandate for federal employees, and those who decide not to get vaccinated aren't at risk of being fired. Many are wondering the fate of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge ever since an unsolicited proposal was submitted to replace it with a toll bridge. Yesterday, the Wilmington Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization discussed the possibility of further exploring the public-private option of replacing the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge with a toll bridge. Following a long discussion, the board voted to not support the exploration of the toll bridge. The motion passed 7-5. This means the proposal will not go any further. Plans to replace the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge are not clear at this time. And the last private-owned and undeveloped barrier island off our state's coast will now be protected forever. The North Carolina Coastal Land Trust has purchased Hootaf Island, located in southern Pender County. The 2.5-mile-long beach and the associated 1,000 acres of salt marsh provides a first line of defense against storms for residents. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist from Mel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be another hot one in the Cape Fear with temperatures getting into the low to middle 90s inland of the coast. Coastal communities will top off in the middle and the upper 80s. And we are going to see a good deal of dry time with mostly sunny skies, but heat index values approaching the triple digits once again this afternoon. Tonight, though, mostly clear skies in store for us, and temperatures fall down to the middle and the upper 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Love you like I do. Don't know why I love you. Don't know why I care.
Moving into and through the second half of our show, here until 10 o'clock, weekdays along the banks of the Cape Fear River as we overlook Battleship North Carolina each and every day here on the Big Talker at BigTalkerFM.com. Of course, I reset some of the bells and whistles behind me just a moment ago to get that all sorted out so you can tune into us through the various platforms each day, of course, through our terrestrial signal across the Cape Fear region, but also on our website at BigTalkerFM.com, through our mobile app. Of course, video portion of the program, you can see this beautiful mug, olive oil skin and hair, all put together in one, made in America with Italian parts. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and get a video portion of the program each and every day. So Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell came out yesterday and said, well, the more you've been paying for goods over the last, year or so, you're going to continue to see an uptick in the cost of everything. Inflation is here to stay and, in fact, could be worse than what was originally expected. And by the way, those generous unemployment benefits, they've been contributing to people not going back to work. Grover Norquist is with us, president of the organization Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, it's a pleasure to speak with you about unpleasant things, as always, this morning. I hope you're well.
I am well, but you're quite right that there's a lot coming at us that the Biden administration has denied, fibbed about. They certainly knew everything that the Fed chairman knew about how costs in the country. In the year before Biden was elected, it went up 1.4%, which is roughly what inflation has been running, 1.4%. But if you look at the 6 months of Biden, we're looking at closer to a 9% annualized rate. So this is getting into Jimmy Carter territory. The last month was 0.9. If you multiply that times 12, I mean, if it doesn't get any worse, it just stays there. You're looking at over 10%. This is bad and getting worse by every measure. And what Biden is trying to do when he says, it's transitory inflation. By the way, that is not a thing, okay? I studied economics. There's no transitory inflation. Inflation is the rate of change of the overall prices of goods and services. I mean, there's some things that Biden has done to damage particular sectors. He's made all energy in the country more expensive by announcing he's going to tax and subsidize fake energy, less effective energy, wind and solar. If you subsidize that, you raise the price of energy, period, beyond what it should be. If you close down, remember the Russians closed down one of our pipelines for a couple of days, and it caused no end of problems. He's decided to destroy several pipelines for the next 100 years, which will raise the cost of energy for hundreds of millions of Americans forever, unless some different president puts that pipeline back together again. So he doesn't want to talk about inflation because it's one of the issues that he's upside down on. People don't like his position on inflation, on spending, on the violence at the border, and on crime, all things that have demonstrably gotten worse since he was president. It's one thing to say, we have a problem, it's continued, what's the matter with the president? He hasn't fixed it in 6 months. These are problems. The border was under control until he became president. Inflation was under control until he became president. Crime's snuck up a little bit since the BLM riots and so on, but that was kind of his team cheerleading for that. But it's gotten even worse since then. It's gotten dramatically worse since. These are issues he don't want to talk about. That's why everything's COVID all day. Every time 3 people in Idaho get the flu, we all have to talk about COVID, not because that's what's important, but because what's important is to not talk about the inflation. He's not the third term of Barack Obama. He's the first term of Jimmy Carter. And everybody's going to have to go back and get their little history books out and see that video of Jimmy Carter when he didn't want to have energy in the United States. What he told us we should do was wear a sweater when it got cold in the winter. You weren't going to have home heating oil, or at least not enough to make it comfortable. You should learn to be cold in the winter. That was his advice. And we also had malaise. We were all depressed because he damaged the economy. And this is exactly what our friend Biden is doing now. He's creating problems and announcing we're going to have to live with them. And they just popped in from Mars somewhere. So he's going to talk about everything except inflation and hopefully get his spending bills passed while people are not connecting the inflation and his massive spending bills.
Distract and deflect. It's the way of life in Washington, D.C. In many cases, doesn't matter which political party is in office. With that said, going back to 1980 and Jimmy Carter, easy for a peanut farmer from Georgia to talk about how you just have to wear a sweater in the winter. Not living off the banks of Lake Erie in western Pennsylvania in the middle of winter. Very easy to talk about how we just throw a sweater on. No, I mean, some of these comments are baffling to me, and it's like, oh, all right, this is the president of the United States, isn't it? To make it, and not to just get totally partisan here, it's embarrassing and sad, frankly, to see where we're at when it comes to leadership in this country.
Well, right now there's this collection of special interest, spending interest, that basically bought a party. And they went to the Democrats and they said, we want you to spend trillions of dollars unionizing certain industries. We did see in the country the failure of labor unions in the public sector, particularly in schools. It was the unions out there saying, close down the schools. It was the unions saying, we want to get paid for not working. We don't want to go back to work. That wasn't teachers speaking. Those were the union bosses saying, on behalf of the worst teachers, we would prefer not to work this year. We would prefer not to get up and get dressed and go teach students. And they're still arguing for demanding, you want us to go back to work, you got to pay us more. But the average teacher got a 3% pay raise at a time when they weren't showing up for work this last year. The rest of us didn't see that. So there's a real problem. You have the organized labor, you have the radical environmentalists who think it's funny to restructure everything, and the guys who mandate those toilets that don't flush completely, and the light bulbs that convince you you have glaucoma, and they have these religious rites they want you to go through where you separate the green glass from the white glass for the recycling priests. They want to push everybody around and have the government do it, and they've got together and have a Democratic Party that is really just signed on to every one of their spending interests, and they've just got to take a lot of money from the American people and from the future. I know they like to say we're only going to tax the rich, but when liberals say that, they haven't finished the sentence. We're only going to tax the rich first. Then we're going to get you. And inflation is the secret sauce about how do you square, I'm only going to tax people who make more than X, with the fact that you need more money than that to do everything that you promised. Answer, inflation. Give it enough time. We're all rich. Inflation can make everybody into higher tax brackets. That's how the government used to raise its taxes for decades. They didn't pass tax increases. They just let inflation put people up into higher and higher tax brackets. It had a word for it, like fiscal gift or something. Fiscal bonus. Because inflation, taxes went up without raising tax. That's what happens to your home values. Inflation makes your home value go up, your property taxes go up automatically. Nobody has to vote.
Grover Norquist, President for Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, when we talk about this inflation, as you kind of put it, we're going to give people more money to go back to work, but you've got 9% inflation, so you get a 5% raise. Oh, that means you're paying more in everything you do. 4%, of your pay raise now goes to the cost of goods increasing, for everyday items, from school supplies. Good luck finding those, by the way, if you're getting ready to go back to school shopping. Gas. Well, Thursday of last week, I couldn't find gas at a couple of petrol stations in the area. Some of my liberal friends say, it's just a non-inconvenience. Just go find another gas station. Yeah, until everyone else decides to do the same thing, and then we have a gas shortage. Grover, what when it comes to the workforce shortage, when it comes to the supply chain disruptions that we've seen globally, when it comes to the printing of trillions of dollars with more down the pipeline, according to last night's vote, at least, to get this infrastructure bill going. What role and effect does that have, in the price of consumer goods going up?
When you throw more money out there, when you in effect have to print the money because you can't raise it in taxes, they're not going to be able to raise in taxes the amount of money they say they're going to. They're already going to be raising taxes on middle-income people. When you raise the corporate income tax is the liberals' favorite tax. Why? Well, it sounds like General Motors is paying for it, But General Motors doesn't have any money that it doesn't get from selling you cars. So General Motors can raise the price of cars, and you can think you're not paying General Motors corporate income taxes, but when you pay higher prices for a car, that is exactly what you're doing. They collect the tax from you, and they, quote unquote, pay it. They send it in. You paid it. They just collected it. And in addition, the corporate income tax, somewhere between 50 and 70%, depending on different economists' analysis, 50 to 70% of the corporate income tax is paid by workers in lower wages, because one of the ways that you can control labor costs, if the government's taking more of your money, is to pay people less. And that's why when the Republicans cut the corporate income tax in the end of 2017, 2 years later, we had seen in 2019 the median income go up by $4,400. Okay, the median, meaning half the people made more than $62,000 a year, half the families made less than $62,000 a year, and this was, and that median income went up by $4,400 or 6.8%. Why? Because when you cut the business tax, companies can invest more per person, more capital, more investment per person, better computers, better trucks, better equipment, and people become more productive. We're more productive than people in Bangladesh, not because we're nicer, but because we have more capital, more investment per person, more machinery, better high-tech stuff that goes with each worker, and he or she is more valuable. And by the way, if you don't pay them more, someone else will. So it's not like you get to choose on that if you're a company. That's why wages went up. That's why unemployment went to 3.5%. And COVID masked how wildly successful cutting the corporate income tax was for workers in their wages and the numbers who worked. And now Biden's hoping you forgot that, and that when he takes it away from you, you'll think it had something to do with COVID.
Grover Norquist with us here this morning, Americans for Tax Reform, again highlighting all this inflation that we're seeing across the board. Pretty much anything and everything you purchase, you're paying more for than you were, say, just this time last year. And the worst of it is still ahead of us, according to what we heard yesterday from the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Now, in terms of this massive infrastructure plan that garnered 17 Republican votes, including the 2 senators from here in North Carolina, Republican senators, when we talk about another trillion tacked onto this in infrastructure, it always baffles me. And maybe I'm not a very smart man. I'm not a DC insider, but to the everyday average Joe out there, it seems as if our lawmakers already making decisions and putting the cart before the horse, in that it seems every time there's a big proposal laid out there, they express support for it before the legislative text even comes out with details, highlighting the plan. Let's get some broad talking points. We agree with it, and who cares whatever else, minute details you may, put in there, late in the game. Why is that, such a novel concept to read the bill, get the legislative text before you publicly express support for it?
They ought to. They end up in a hurry. Because Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, voted for it, and he has an agreement with the D as to what's in the package. So I think that he has looked at this and knows what's in it. I'm not quite sure why the Ds don't want to make it public. Here's the challenge. The Democrats have not been in allowing the federal government to invest in roads because they don't like roads. They like subways in New York. They don't like roads. People drive cars on roads. They don't like water plants. They don't like electricity. They don't like power plants. They don't like pipelines. They don't like all the things that you need. And the Republicans have been trying to get this stuff built. And whenever they do it, the Democrats say, no, let's do something green instead of something productive. And so at least in this case, the Republicans took back the word infrastructure. Infrastructure, the Democrats believe, is a French word that means everything except roads and bridges. And the reason why they like to say infrastructure is it is a magic word. The Winston Group did some great polling. The American people asked, do you think that spending on infrastructure helps the economy grow? 50% say yes. Do you believe more government spending helps the economy grow? 34% yes, 42% no. So if you can take government spending and call it infrastructure, you actually get to win the argument instead of lose the argument. So what are the Democrats doing? They've announced welfare as infrastructure. They got a whole bunch of welfare programs. They got a whole bunch of make-work stuff, a whole bunch of spending. It has nothing to do with making the economy more productive or getting roads built or pipelines or ports or airports, any of that. And frankly, what they did allow on infrastructure was very small. So the Republicans took a risk. I'm not sure it was a good idea, but I understand the reasoning. And that was, we do need some roads, bridges, pipelines, ports, material in the spending. Have gone in, they've cut all that stuff out, refused to pass it, and we've gone quite some time taking money and throwing it away rather than spending it on some useful bits that the government can do. So they at least are nailing that part down, and they will be able to say, we voted for the parts that America wanted, the real infrastructure, roads, bridges, pipelines, ports, and the Ds passed this stuff over here by themselves. And then you can say, do you want the party that's willing to spend some money on roads and bridges, but not the crazy stuff? Or do you want the party that had to be dragged kicking and screaming into a vote for any real infrastructure, real roads and bridges? And that's the fight we're going to have. So it's a risk, because I think the Democrats, if they're smart, will turn around and go, well, we all agreed really on all this spending. Remember that bipartisan? And they'll make it sound as if Republicans had signed off on the $6 trillion when they really had agreed to $1 trillion on quote unquote infrastructure. So it's going to be tough. It's a real challenge and a real problem. We do need roads and bridges. The Democrats have always held that hostage. You want your roads and bridges, you have to give us subways in New York. They started that under Reagan. Reagan, you want your roads and bridges, you got to build us subways in New York. Why do you take money from people who drive cars, who pay gasoline taxes, and give it to people on subways? Subway people can pay for it by buying a ticket. You don't need a subsidy. People who ride on roads pay for the roads with gas taxes. The stealing the gas money and not building roads and handing it to big city political machines, to guys with, who work for the subway system and have pensions that bankrupt the subway system, that's not what people want.
Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform, the president of the organization, following all the news coming out of Washington, D.C., and, of course, highlighting the first portion of our program and segment concerning consumer prices and, how inflation, is here to stay, at least for the next couple of months and likely into next year. How will that play, of course, into the midterms of 2022? We shall see. Grover, thanks so much for the time.
Good to be with you. Thank you so very much.
It's always great to hear from him as well. Americans for Tax Reform. Consumer prices increased 5.4% for the year ending in June, the highest rate of inflation since, the Great Recession, well above the predictions by the quote-unquote experts. Of course, Joe Biden trying to spin his way out of all of this. Are we waking up yet, folks? You're paying more for anything and everything if you can find it on the store shelf or, at the gas station. We had one of the trolls out there yesterday talking about, a few days ago, why are you pointing out all the things that you can't get at the store that you typically go to? Just go to another one. It's an inconvenience. I don't know what your point is here. Well, the point is, this is a snowball effect. And eventually, the flurries turn into an avalanche. And you can see it coming. Wake the hell up. Smack him in the back of the head like my dad used to do to me. Still, I think I've got, some PTSD from that. Every time he walks behind me, I'm ducking. I'm 38 years old. Great to have Grover a part of the program here this morning on the Big Talker FM. Your calls between now and the top of the hour at 910-299-7535.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
When your AC stops, don't despair. Just go.
Go where? The South Pole?
Go Southern Comfort Heating and Air. For preventive maintenance, service, and repair, go there.
Where?
Southern Comfort Heating and Air.
Are they fair?
Fair and square. Low prices, speedy service, and technicians who care. When your AC stops, don't stare. Go there.
Is there a website you can share?
Go SouthernComfort.com. If you go anywhere else, beware.
I swear.
Call 910-524-7609.
O'Leary's Automotive Repair has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006. Again, want to give a big round of applause to the volunteers at the Cape Fear River Watch. Cigarettes, balloons, beer cans, oh my. A week and a half after the 3-day widespread panic concert at Riverfront Amphitheater, well, the place is still trashed. Some of the concert goers said, well, you couldn't find a trash can. Where else was I supposed to put my garbage? Wondering why we have to go and volunteer our time, not me necessarily, but those who are spending time this Sunday to volunteer their time to clean up after a paid event. Shouldn't the city or Live Nation have some sort of role and responsibility for keeping the area clean? Maybe that should have been included in the contracts. Or maybe did the forefathers of our city, our city council, not think of that while they were giving away, the farm, $22+ million of approved money by you, the city voter. But nonetheless, it's amazing that we've got volunteers having to go out and clean up our new amphitheater because, a week and a half later, there are balloons, beer cans, cigarette butts all over still. Go figure. Well, it was the Wild West in Wilmington yesterday. The shot spotter alert for about 20 minutes went off nonstop due to 5th and Grace. 2 cars passing by, shooting each other up. I parked my car near that area, come up after helping produce our Wednesday late morning show, Wake Up Our Faith, and I'm like, looks like my car is in the middle of a crime scene. That was a little unsettling. Got a homeless guy who pulls a gun on a cop right at the corner of Randall and College in front of UNCW. Shot spotter alert goes off. And then our top elected law enforcement officials, hold a news conference, but don't give any news. They make a plea for help. Please contact us if you have information. And then they peddle out the families of those who were killed to make a plea for no more violence. They tell me it's cyclical, these sorts of murders that occur within the, different portions of our society. They rise, they bubble up, and then they die back down. And then we get their typical response from our elected officials. Well, it's cyclical. Please, no more violence. Meanwhile, 24 or more casings were marked off at the corner of 5th and Grace during broad daylight yesterday. Was it retaliation or an effort to retaliate? I don't know. There's no connection on that, but when we get some answers to many of the questions that we have concerning the last week of events that we've seen transpire here in our city, or will we ever? We'll be back.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jeremy House. 17 Republican senators voted with all 50 Democrats last night to advance a bipartisan infrastructure deal as Democrats work to push their spending agenda. Details from correspondent Bernie Bennett.
The vote comes 1 week after all Republicans blocked a similar move, arguing that Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer was rushing the process as senators try to finalize their agreement. But the group announced that they had reached a final agreement with the White House for a $1.2 trillion bill over 8 years. With $550 billion in new spending, at least 10 Republicans were needed to advance the bill. In the end, Democrats were able to net 17 GOP votes, among them Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Roy Blunt, Mitt Romney, and Rob Portman. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
With the Olympics well underway, Tokyo has reported record-breaking coronavirus cases for the third straight day. IOC spokesperson Mark Adams says the spike in COVID-19 cases is not linked to the game.
As far as I'm aware, there's not a single case of an infection spreading to the Tokyo population from the athletes or Olympic movement.
People are still roaming the streets despite stay-at-home requests making restrictions ineffective. The Taliban say 150 people have died in flooding in Afghanistan's mountainous northeastern Nuristan province. A spokesman for the provincial governor said water had inundated the village of Turdesh, destroying at least 100 homes. A tsunami warning was issued for parts of Alaska after a large earthquake struck the peninsula. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was magnitude 8.2 and hit 56 miles east-southeast of Perryville, Alaska. The number of Americans collecting unemployment benefits slid last week, and the Labor Department reporting jobless claims dropped by 24,000 to 400,000. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
When it comes to the tools in your garage, it's all about lithium-ion. Plenty of power, maximum efficiency, and a longer life. Introducing Nobilift lithium-ion powered forklifts. All the power and efficiency you need and essentially maintenance-free. With a dramatic savings in overall cost of ownership, Nobilift forklifts pay for themselves over time, and that increases your bottom line. Nobilift, revolutionizing the material handling industry one job at a time. What's in your warehouse? Contact us today for a cost analysis at nobiliftna.com/save.
Voters in Texas have elected Republican Jake Ellzey in a special election over a rival backed by the former President Donald Trump. Ellzey says rival Susan Wright got Mr. Trump's endorsement, but he had a lot of states and local support.
All endorsements are great. She should be grateful for the endorsement of President Trump, but at the end of the day, it's the candidates who are going to be standing on the floor of the House of Representatives, and that comes down to the candidates and to the kind of the campaigns that they run.
Ellzey's comments were aired on KDFW Fox 4. Vice President Kamala Harris says efforts to address root causes of migration from Central America won't produce immediate results as she unveils a broad strategy that avoids detailed targets and deadlines. President Biden's administration has struggled for short and long-term responses. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Jeremy House. AstraZeneca has said it'll seek U.S. authorization for its COVID-19 vaccine in the second half of this year.
The new timetable comes after the Anglo-Swedish drug maker had initially suggested in April that it would submit the application within weeks. The new announcement comes as the company released second quarter financial results. The report showed that the drug maker delivered more than 700 million doses of the vaccine to over 170 countries in the first half of this year. That includes 80 million doses that went to the COVAX initiative for low and middle income countries. The UK, European Union and World Health Organization have already authorized use of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Karen Chamas, London.
At the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, a few hours after winning the first individual gold medal of his career, Caleb Dressel returned to the pool to tie an Olympic swimming record in preliminaries of the 100-meter butterfly. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
We've reached our third and final hour this morning as we roll through the latter part of the work week. We thank Grover Norquist for joining us in the last hour, along with my good buddy Matt Treppel from Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Great organization going on here locally and nationally, internationally, impacting young people's lives through a faith-based ministry, connecting faith, athletics, education. In just a little while, Coach Joe Moglia is going to join us. He's the former head football coach down at Coastal Carolina University, also the former CEO of TD Ameritrade. He helped broker the deal between and the merger between Ameritrade and Charles Schwab a couple of months ago, and he actually rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange Wednesday, the closing bell, and he'll be with us here in about a half hour. Right now, Harry Knight and Bill Moore are with us from the Southeast Republican Men's Association. They join us twice a month on Thursdays inside this third hour. Fellas, it's a pleasure as always, and I hope we're doing well here this morning.
Thanks for having us back.
Good morning to you. What's on your mind? Because I've got plenty to talk about. We'll let you take it over here this morning before the vein starts popping out of my forehead as it's been all day.
That's fine. We'll keep it in your head. Why don't you start with one of our closest activity?
Yeah, as I say, we'll start out with some good stuff then. It's starting to come out public now, and announcements will be going out today, later this week, and over the weekend. Southeast Republican Men's Association and myself actually at the Hunt Club that I'm a member of is sponsoring meet and greet and fundraiser for the Mark Walker campaign. This is to replace Senator Burr. It'll be just outside of Burgaw, be a 4-hour skeet shooting period in the afternoon, and then a pig picking style dinner with the candidate and some special guests, which we will be announcing in about 3 days. Later today, you'll be able to go to the surma.gop website and sign up. It's $150 for 2 rounds of skeet plus dinner, or you can choose to just come to the dinner for $50. This will be very similar to what we did for the judges' meet last year. So it's a great time for everybody, and it's a great way to go do something different.
Let me ask you about this Senate campaign in this Republican primary, because in looking into some of the Democrats seeking their nomination, Looney Tune as expected as far as some of the policies and the people they're aligning themselves with. You've got kind of a 3-horse race. Mark Walker, kind of trailing right now in the early polls and surveys that are out there. Not as well known across the state. Doesn't currently hold elected office. Neither does, of course, Pat McCrory, but has run statewide campaigns prior to him putting his name in the hat. Then you've got Congressman Ted Budd. He gets the big endorsement from President Trump. He then goes on an ad campaign by all across the state, as you hear on this station and many others. We had Pat McCrory on earlier this week. Mark Walker joined us on Friday. He's been down here a ton over the last couple of months to get his name out and to meet and talk with voters. Ted Budd still hasn't committed to those 3 debates that Governor McCrory laid out last week. How do you kind of see all of this shaking out? What are the feelings among Republicans in the state of North Carolina, or at least speaking for Surma and southeastern North Carolina, as to how we see this race shaking out?
Well, I think you characterized it pretty well. Mark Walker, you rattled off some statistics there, but in reality, Mark Walker won the straw poll resoundingly at the North Carolina GOP convention, which happened after the former president's endorsement of Ted Budd.
Correction, the poll was taken before the endorsement, but the results were put out after.
That's right. The results wasn't published. But Ted Budd isn't very well known in this area. Mark Walker is. Obviously, the former governor, Pat McCrory, is. And while I'm not going to take sides at this point in the game, because I think they're all viable candidates, you need to start thinking about who can win in the general election. My personal opinion is Sherry Beasley will end up being the Democratic nominee. So whoever our Republican nominee needs to be able to take on a former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, you better have some very solid backing associated with that. And you better have very solid policy positions that don't wave. And there are several other candidates in the Republican side that have flip-flopped, quite frankly. And I think that's a losing proposition. Winning the primary and losing the general is not winning.
Well, there's no doubt about that. At the end of the day, who wins the championship? Not the American League Championship Series. We hang pennants, I guess, for participation and saying, hey, we won the league. But at the end of the day, you don't have a World Series ring. It comes down to it. You didn't get the job done.
That's right.
But something on a little different take with that. As you know,
look at this. Hold on. I don't mean to interrupt. We've got 2 guys who belong to the same civically minded organization that have different takes. Look at that. It is possible in America today that men who align themselves, women likewise, who align themselves on many different issues can have a different opinion and look and take on some
and
of the same
respect
things.
each other when it's
look
over.
At that. We're going to all leave and have a handshake after this.
Look at that.
A novel idea.
Couple of things on what you said. First of all, I don't disagree with you said about Walker. However, I do, I've been in contact with Congressman Budd's office. They found me, and they're looking to come to speak to Surma. They're looking to come to speak to Brunswick.
That's good.
And we're actually talking about them coming on 106.7 and setting an appointment first with the world famous Joe Catenacci. And then maybe the little guy at the Tuesday nights will get a piece of the pie.
Well, I was going to say, because my emails keep getting shot back to me as sending it to the wrong email when I'm trying to contact Congressman Budd's office. Nonetheless,
I have the political director's personal line if you want that. We can deal with that, sir.
This guy knows people,
and that's good because in the state of North Carolina, quite frankly, and people have heard me give this discussion multiple times. And New Hanover County is the same, but the state's essentially a purple state. New Hanover County is essentially a purple county. 1/3 by registered voters. If you're looking to win a statewide election, you better be looking to win Southeast North Carolina. So that's good that Ted Budd's coming down here.
Well, aside from that, the real point I was heading to was about Marty Cook. Okay, now, Marty is running for the campaign. He's a friend. He's out of Brunswick. He's one of our local grown. And he says the right things. The problem he has, and I think every other candidate with limited funds have, is they just have no way to compete. I was talking the other day with him, and he goes to he goes everywhere. He travels very much like Dan Forrest did in his first campaign. He's all over the state, but it's $200 for a table here. It's $300 for a table here. It's $100 for a table here. And then he says, and then when it's all over, many times they don't even call him up to take a picture of the group that was there because he's not seen as a first-year candidate. And I think that's not fair to some very good people who are back there. So I have just a slightly different view on that.
Well, I think at the end of the day, that just, a lot of people see that as being the big problem with, politics today. Particularly when you get up into Washington, D.C., whoever's got the most money has the best chance of securing a nomination and the chance to, to go secure themselves a pretty nice, livelihood for their lives, their children's lives, their grandchildren's lives. And, what do we, the taxpayers and the constituents, get out of all of that?
And the most money doesn't deliver the best candidate.
And with that said, well, from what Governor McCrory laid out there in the conversation we had last week, well, he pointed out that from fundraising numbers, most of his money has come from inside the state of North Carolina, while Congressman Mark Walker's fundraising has come from Washington, D.C., and the insiders there. That was the claim he made. I'll play it back for you if you'd like.
No, I heard it. I listened to the show that day, so I'm aware of that. But my concern, again, if we keep not, if you want to get up there and you want to run for office, you tell what you can do better and what you're going to do. You don't knock your opponents, because all you're doing is giving food to the opposite side if that person gets the nomination. Reagan said it well. We don't knock fellow Republicans, and I think that's an issue, and we need to look at that.
Well, without any skin in the game, so to speak, I think everyone deserves criticism, even if it is my political opponent who belongs to the same party. President Trump, I would think, would disagree also with President Reagan in that statement that we don't bash Republicans.
I'm not saying you don't compare record. You can talk record, but you don't get personal, and you don't say you're a two-time loser. This kind of stuff that's been said.
Yeah, now that I agree with. But yeah, I mean, you definitely have
But didn't
to talk
President
about
Trump kind of
policy.
make his bones doing that sort of thing?
He's a different kind of politician. Let's put it.
He's not a politician.
Well, right, no doubt. He's a guy from New York City who happens to have a lot of money.
Yeah,
and did just what he said he was going to do.
Yep,
and kept everybody promised.
But just to kind of finish off the Mark Walker and the Senate campaign kind of discussion, I'm sure Joe's got others. Is our event in 2 weeks? It's a great time to come out, not only to meet Mark Walker, but also meet a lot of other different people, because I'm sure there'll be a bunch of local candidates and other folks that will be there as well. So come meet Mark, come meet the campaign, and come meet a whole bunch of the rest of us that will be there too.
And I'll say that in talking with the congressman, meaning Mark Walker, he does have an impressive record as well, and he is one that has been able to reach out to non-traditional Republican voters. Speaking at a graduation ceremony at one of the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. He has had some endorsements from, again, non-traditional Republican voting groups out there that he's touted as part of getting out on the campaign trail. So, again, I'm kind of up in the air. I don't know much about Representative Budd. I've met Mark Walker a couple of times. I've spoken with Pat McCrory at least once here many years ago. He was around a lot as the governor, making trips down to southeastern North Carolina, probably more than any governor in my recent memory of living here for 16, 17 years. So, it should be interesting to see how that all plays out. Of course, we've got some time, 6 months before the February primary, before it all heats up, once again, moving into the midterms. All right, locally, take your crack at it. There's, you want to do the bridge, you want to do, the crime, the public education. Governor Cooper getting ready to hold a news conference today to maybe, put back mask mandates on us, within the schools.
Which
one do you want to take for 500, Alex?
It's just going to get bad on a lot of those topics. But let's talk about that bridge for a few seconds. The Metropolitan Area Group actually voted that down 7-5 yesterday, which means it's now going to go to the DOT, not here locally, decide whether or not a toll bridge is going to go in. So I think that's good. I think that was a good vote, only because it opens up the discussion about what are you going to do with that bridge. Because the reality is that bridge is designed for a 50-year lifespan. It's about 10 years over that. So that bridge has already outlived its quote-unquote technical design. Now, there's obviously some things you can do to keep it operating for longer than that. But there is no money in the state budget for at least another 15 years to replace that bridge. And whether or not that bridge would make it 15 years is a whole different question. So having this discussion may force the state legislature to figure out how to fund the DOT to get us a new bridge without having to do tolls, because there are a number of things that would be bad about having tolls.
So Republicans put forth in their budget proposal that will sure to be vetoed probably by Governor Cooper at the end of the day, and we'll see if they have the votes, the Democrats, to join on board for maybe an override. They set forth a plan that would put massive investment into infrastructure in our state at the tune of billions and billions of dollars over the next 5 or 10 years. And you know what's going up on in Washington right now. You would figure that some of our lawmakers who represent this area up in Raleigh within the North Carolina General Assembly would, like to make some assurances and, bargains with the deal makers up there in Raleigh that, hey, if we're going to jump on board with this, we better get our funding for this bridge.
And I was actually with Charlie Miller last night, and Charlie's actively working on that to try to get some of those funds specifically allocated over here to get money to replace that bridge for the very reasons that I stated. This thing is over its design lifetime. It's got to be replaced at some point.
And from what I'm gathering is that, and from the movers and shakers here and elsewhere, the port, we're not necessarily directly impacted by, the economic activities there, but they want to massively expand the port and its footprint. There's been talks within the city to relocate those rail lines over into Brunswick County for years. So ultimately, we're talking 20, 25 years down the road here. But ultimately, they want to make this, a massive hub for economic, input and output, coming from the port. And you need a bridge that, will not have to be disrupted, meaning the traffic every time, one of these big, massive cargo ships comes down the river.
Yes, we have there. I used to be on the Northeast Commission when those existed a few years ago, and we looked at the fact the Northeast Coast and the Southeast Coast, they need to do some dredging to take the bigger tankers in. That's a reality. But setting up what they call TTPs or TTUs, terminal points or units, depending what you want to call it, we have the facilities here, the railways, we have the waterways to make it an ideal TTP. Brunswick is a perfect place for it because it's still sparse enough to find that operation. There's enough good space, enough good land. There's enough rail down there to make that happen and make this Wilmington, Brunswick area a major reception area for the coast and maybe interior.
But again, this is a 2.5 decade forward thinking type of thing. Not that we do that very well, in our society, but this is one of those things that we're talking about that will be a 20, 25 year project.
Right. And that's right. And to your point, people don't focus on that very well. You need to start thinking about that today because the planning you do today results in how well that gets pulled off in 20 years from now. Because just for that bridge, for example, right, you are going to displace hundreds of lower income families in order to do that. What do you do with those folks? You can't do that in 6 months. This takes years to do that kind of planning.
Well, and frankly, I moved here 16 years ago, and I said it earlier. For 16 years, we've been talking about a bridge replacement. Right. We're no closer now than we were then to finding out what's going to happen with this.
Now, I'm going to take, again, a slightly differing view from my learned partner here.
In 10 minutes.
Though I don't support a toll bridge, I just wish more information was available before the decision was made. No one knows what the toll would be, what the time frame would be. That information had to be forthcoming before a final decision was made, and I am disappointed they did that without that information.
That's right, and that's why that vote of 7-5 to turn it down was a good vote. Just flat out, not enough information was known. That I agree with completely.
See, we can't disagree if you keep agreeing with me.
But at the end of the day, having that unsolicited proposal show up opens the conversation to do the things that we've been talking about. All right, so now we got to start getting real. How do we do this planning?
Well, Mayor Sappho released a statement saying, well, I'm happy that we haven't double taxed our residents. And I'm sitting here saying, well, you just double taxed our residents, particularly if you're in the city. The county gave you a property tax increase. The city gave a property tax increase. So you just double taxed, the Democrat-run city council and New Hanover County Board of Commissioners and Bill Rivenbark. Anyway.
I'm going to be good on that.
What else do we have?
Yeah, he's out here dealing that out to see which one of us is going to
jump on that one. I agree. Something else going on with SERMA on the end of August, the 28th. SERMA has come together with the New Hanover County Republican Women's Club, and we're sponsoring a regional meeting of the Taurus kids, which are teenage Republicans down in Brunswick. And it's an exciting time. Invitations are going out today as I get home to the computer. And we're looking to bring in, we already have Charlie Miller as a guest speaker, Susan Mills, who's the vice chair of the states, coming in, and one of our own from the station, Lillian Beecraft. The kids have asked for her to speak too. So it's going to be a fun time. We're going to do some activities as far as team building and some, as the old history teacher, we're going to do some political history learning in a fun mode.
Bill Moore and Harry Knight with us from the Southeast Republican Men's Association. Again, look for information later today on the Skeet fundraiser with former Congressman Mark Walker, candidate for U.S. Senate. That's at SERMA, SERMA.GOP. The fundraiser will be going on in a couple of weeks up in Burgaw. Also, Bill Moore, Joe Hunting, back on Tuesday, All Things Brunswick. I had the opportunity to produce that program, and I got to say, within the hour, I learned more about Brunswick County. Within 2 conversations with a commissioner and the director of emergency services, learned more about those 2 facets of government than you could get anywhere else within that time frame. It's not a 30-second soundbite on the news. It's not an article that you have to click on and pay for to get this information. It was all carried out and done so in a great way, in a very informative way back on Tuesday, which brings us to this upcoming Tuesday, what will be the 4th of August. Bill and Joe are on Tuesdays, All Things Brunswick. They'll have Representative Charlie Miller on their program, along with Anita Hartzell, who's the Senior Veterans Service Coordinator in Brunswick County. So stay tuned for that.
And if you're going to listen to us, try us on the 3rd of August.
3rd of
because
August.
the 4th is
Sorry.
Wednesday that week.
Sorry, yeah, all right. My days are mixed up. Sorry, I don't have a calendar in front
And
of
as
me.
a side note, if you want to hear that great show from Tuesday night, it is replayed Sunday at 7 p.m. And you can always go to the website. All Things in Brunswick is there on the Facebook site.
Who knew? I didn't even know it replayed later in the weekend. I'm the one that controls the programming here. How about that?
Let me hook you up with TK. He can help you fix that.
So that's Tuesday, August 3rd, a fresh edition of All Things Brunswick from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Big Talker FM. Fellas, as always, thanks for your time, and we'll catch you up in a couple weeks.
Thanks for having us.
CIRMA, that's Southeast Republican Men's Association, CIRMA.gop, their website if you like to learn more about their civically minded organization here in southeastern North Carolina.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Is your dog or cat a picky eater or suffer with skin and food allergies or excessive shedding? Did you know dry food was the #1 cause of these health problems? Vicki Glisson has fed over 3 generations of Cane Corso dogs a raw diet every day for the past 12 years and developed an easy, affordable system that costs less than dry kibble. You have nothing to lose when you take our 30-day raw feeding challenge. If your pet doesn't improve in 30 days, we'll refund your purchase price. Let's get your pet naturally healthy, naturally happy today. Visit heavensenthealthypet.com.
Have something to say but didn't get a chance to call in? Give us a ring on the Big Talker Talkback line at 910-275-5515 and we'll play it back over the air. Leave us a message. That's the Big Talker Talkback line at 910-275-5515.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
All right, we've had so much going on here this morning. We haven't been able to get to King Cooper's news conference that's scheduled later today. He had a news briefing set for Wednesday, but pushed it to Thursday instead after the CDC flip-flopped and delivered new guidance on masking for vaccinated people and our schools K through 12. Clearly, the route as to why the King rescheduled his news conference for today. And, his mask mandate was set to expire at the end of the month. Will it be put back in place? Spinning takes time, especially when you're getting the guidance from Albany, Sacramento, Washington, D.C. on that party line. As we've often seen, the governor, kind of lay in the weeds, gauge the temperature in the room, lick his finger, put it in the air, see which way the wind's blowing, and then comes out with a statement. Now, this is going to be chaos within our local schools, depending on, of course, what happens today. Throws these districts into chaos. 14 North Carolina school districts have already voted to make masks optional this fall, including Pender County. Brunswick Board of Ed looking for guidance and input from parents and families within their district. No word yet from New Hanover County as to what they're thinking. Though the scuttlebutt is they're looking to make masks mandated for the upcoming school year. That's at least the rumors. And by the way, as Governor Cooper, the King, preps for his news conference today, he focused on masks and the new CDC guidelines. No one will be talking about this, but it's important to note that the new CDC guidance is based off a study from India that did not include people who have received any of the U.S. approved vaccinations. Also, the study has not passed peer review. So anyone and everyone who tells you that they're following the science, is a buffoon. And that's what you're going to hear today. We're following the science and the data. The science and the data, or new guidance, was based off a study from India that did not include people who have received any of the U.S. approved vaccines. The study that has not yet passed peer review will be used today and has been used to guide our Centers for Disease Control and the new recommendations they laid out earlier this week. Governor Cooper's news conference scheduled for later on today. And by the way, we go more towards a lockdown, mandates, restrictions. The Delta hysteria won't be without pain for many. The winners will be the pajama class who can work from home and big businesses that can deliver to them. The losers will be you and our small businesses that drive our economy. Take that to the bank. Joe Moglia going to join us next, former CEO of TD Ameritrade. He helped broker the merger between Ameritrade and Charles Schwab a couple of months ago. He rang the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange yesterday on Wall Street, and he's the former head football coach down at Coastal Carolina University. He joins us next.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A tsunami watch has been issued for Hawaii following a large earthquake off the Alaska Peninsula. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center listed the magnitude as 8.1 and said, quote, an investigation is underway to determine if there is a tsunami threat to Hawaii. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was magnitude 8.2 and hit 56 miles east-southeast of Perryville, Alaska. In Washington today, President Joe Biden is set to announce that federal employees must show proof they've received a coronavirus vaccine or submit to regular testing and stringent social distancing, masking, and travel restrictions. The president hopes to use the federal workforce as a model for employers nationwide. Those familiar with details of the plan emphasize that the new guidance is not a vaccine mandate for federal employees, and those who decide not to get vaccinated aren't at risk of being fired. Many are wondering the fate of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge ever since an unsolicited proposal was submitted to replace it with a toll bridge. Yesterday, the Wilmington Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization discussed the possibility of further exploring the public-private option of replacing the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge with a toll bridge. Following a long discussion, the board voted to not support the exploration of the toll bridge. The motion passed 7-5. This means the proposal will not go any further. Plans to replace the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge are not clear at this time. And the last private-owned and undeveloped barrier island off our state's coast will now be protected forever. The North Carolina Coastal Land Trust has purchased Hootaf Island, located in southern Pender County. The 2.5-mile-long beach and the associated 1,000 acres of salt marsh provides a first line of defense against storms for residents. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist from Mel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be another hot one in the Cape Fear with temperatures getting into the low to middle 90s inland of the coast. Coastal communities will top off in the middle and the upper 80s. And we are going to see a good deal of dry time with mostly sunny skies, but heat index values approaching the triple digits once again this afternoon. Tonight, though, mostly clear skies in store for us, and temperatures fall down to the middle and the upper 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. Twomenandatruck.com.
Volare, oh, cantare, oh.
Steamy, hot, humid. It's the summer on the Carolina coast. It's good for you. Sweat it out here this morning. And make sure you take a little care of yourself. It'll be dropping like flies out there because you forgot to hydrate the night before. If you're feeling a little dehydrated out there, I point you to the grocery aisle where they sell Pedialyte. Just as someone who's been around the block or two and has experienced dehydration a time or two for reasons, well, unknown. Let's be safe out there, folks, as you get out and about here along the Carolina coast. Another hot summer day upon us. As we move the conversation forward, we've been all over the board here today. Lots going on, of course, up in our capital city of Raleigh with King Cooper's news conference scheduled for later today. A whole hell of a lot of news going on here within the Cape Fear region, up to Washington, D.C. and back. And now let's head on over to Wall Street and get an update on the financial markets and some of the things my friend Coach Joe Moglia is up to these days. Coach, it's a pleasure. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
I'm hanging tight, anxiously awaiting, of course, the start of our Coastal Carolina University football season. But 35 or so days away, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, everybody's excited about that. We're so proud of the guys and the staff and the players in terms of what they did, what we did last year. And we've got everybody back except for Teron, who's with with the Eagles, and CJ, who's with the Eagles. I'm sorry, Teron is with the Eagles, and CJ, who's with the Bears. And they worked hard in the off season, and I'm sure they're going to be ready to go.
Coach, you're a forward thinker, and when you kind of stepped away from your coaching duties and turned it over to Coach Chadwell, and I know that it may not be of the utmost interest to all of our listeners, but To me, as a forward thinker, understanding the pedigree that Coach Chadwell brought with him, his offensive mind, do you think we'd be able to move this thing forward into big boy college football as quickly as we did? And do you think we're going to sustain it? Meaning last year wasn't just kind of a Cinderella story that all fell into place for us.
Well, I think we always believed that we were going to be competitive. We always thought that, this is Jamie and the staff and I, and we always thought that last year was going to be, probably our most competitive year as of that time. This is as of 2-3 years ago. Certainly it was. I think it was more than we had even anticipated. But I think the fact that we did it, the fact that we actually got the job done, and the fact that, you think about it, Coastal Carolina was ranked ahead of Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, LSU, Southern Cal, et cetera. It's something I would like to think the whole state of South Carolina would be very, very proud of. I know we are. So we've got most of the team back. We play schedules comparable to what we did a year ago. And I have no doubt that the guys are ready to go.
Coach, let me ask you, you've been here, there, everywhere. You've experienced a lot during your life, professionally, personally. Where does helping ring the closing bell of the New York Stock Exchange line up on your list of life experiences that you like to tout most?
Well, I think sometimes I think when you do that, it's because you have a significant event coming on, and you're usually doing it with either the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, and it's something that they want to tout, so they make a very, very big deal out of that. Now, I don't want to sound immodest as far as this goes, but probably over the span of my career, both in Merrill Lynch and in Ameritrade, I have rung both the opening and the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange, as well as the NASDAQ. And every time you do it, it's a thrill. And every time you do it, there's something to be proud of. I think with regard to us, if you recall, Joe, OBFI came as part of a merger with our SPAC, Fundamental Global New America, FGNA. And the world is abuzz with SPACs now. There's about 650 of them out there. And frankly, most of them are not going to make it. So what I'm most proud of is that when we began this as Fundamental Global, we made a commitment that we were only going to do something with a firm that we really believed had a good management team, a well-thought-out strategy, and had a real shot of being something significant over time. And in return, we would partner with them, and we'll be long-term shareholders, and their chairman and founder and their CEO recognize as well that they have a call on me if we need to talk about strategy or anything along those lines. So I'm proud of what we did there.
Coach, I know very well, and maybe some of our listeners do too, the ability to navigate the financial world as successfully as you have, along with the world of sports and particularly college football. Talk about how those interests kind of peaked at you at one point or another, and what that life has been like to kind of get into both the worlds, and how you've been able to implement a successful strategy, not going too far off of the beaten path as far as the way you carry yourself in the financial world as to the way you carried yourself on the football field.
Well, thank you, Joe. I actually appreciate that. I think you're aware of my leadership philosophy. It's called BAM. That's be a man, but that is not meant to be sexist. It's called be a man because it was the foundation upon which we built Coastal Carolina football, and I've got 125 players. They have another 25 analysts, interns, coaches, et cetera. So be a man was very appropriate for that. But it's really be a leader. I raised my daughters that way. The females that were my executives on Wall Street or Ameritrade, that was their standard as was for everybody else. So a real leader stands on their own 2 feet, takes responsibility for themselves, treats others with dignity and respect, and lives with the consequences of their actions. Now, a piece of that, one of the most critical pieces of that is what I call spiritual soundness. The objective is we want to, as individuals and all the people we care about and love, we want to be happy in life. But it's difficult to be happy in life if you don't feel good about yourself. And it's difficult to feel good about yourself if you are in a job that's really not a career path. It's a job. And the job could be a drag, whereas a career path could be very, very challenging. So you've got to be able to pick the path. And this requires work, by the way. You've got to be able to pick the path that you believe truly that you have the skill sets for, and you're quite confident in that. And if you don't, do not go down that path. And if you do, though, then there's a second question you have to ask yourself: is this something you would really be passionate about doing? And I've fortunate in my life, but it didn't happen by accident. I really did go through a multi-month process thinking about what I would do, multiple legal pads filled out. And I believed in the beginning my path was to be a coach. And then ultimately when I went to Wall Street, it was the path I believed was the right path for me. So where I'm fortunate here is that I picked the two paths in my life I knew I was good at and I knew I really genuinely loved. And that's the reason why all those things worked out well and are balanced such. I picked the right paths. And you do that if you really know who you are and you know where you're going.
Coach Joe Moglia with us here this morning. He's the former head football coach at Coastal Carolina University, and I've gotten to know him over the years since my work alongside Coastal and the Chanticleer Sports Network. He helped with the recent merger between TD Ameritrade and helped negotiate that merger with Charles Schwab, and I rang the closing bell yesterday on Wall Street. He's with us here this morning. Coach, let's go back to the roots, though. Let's go back to the Bronx. And in a time where we see violence in our cities and in working with young people who may come from difficult backgrounds and low socioeconomic sort of situations, how have you been able to turn those life experiences, as some Italian-Irish kid in the Bronx with friends that weren't necessarily on the up and up? I'm sure you got your fair share of trouble back in the day, as kids do today. What's some of the advice and some of the knowledge that you're able to pass along, or the challenges that you were able to put forth to young people coming up through the college ranks, on the football field, that has, helped those kids become very productive members of society the way you've become?
Again, thank you, Joe. I would go back to the same BAM concept, the leadership concept. I first wrote that when I was 21 years old, and I was getting my first head high school job in Delaware at Claymont. By the way, Archmere Academy, which is the same school President Biden went to. And kind of when you grow up in the streets, and I got in trouble enough, but you go in the streets, at some point, you got to recognize you take responsibility for yourself. So, for example, when my family moved from New York City to Omaha, when I left Merrill Lynch to go to TD Ameritrade, that was shortly before 9/11. And then for the next year or two, I never saw our country, because of the terrorist attack, I never saw our country more united. So I was never proud of our country because of the way we were united. I think the last 2 or 3 years, I've never seen our country more divided. I should go back to kind of growing up and going back to the situation that we have now. That what happens is today, for example, we get all the hostility and any culture inequality. Everybody's blaming it on somebody else. Everybody. Like, oh, not my fault, it's their fault, it's the government's fault, it's them, it's that people are this, people are that, but nobody's taking responsibility for it themselves. And I think as a kid, as I began coaching, I still live in the same neighborhood, but I was coaching, I recognized that at some point, my players, my loved ones, need to stand up, take responsibility for themselves, and you always treat others with dignity and respect. So people just did that, always treat others with dignity and respect, kind of the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated yourself, everything will fall into place. I didn't necessarily get that when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, but I started to figure that out at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. At 19, 20, 21, I was coaching. So it was that philosophy that came together for me, and that was the one that, frankly, differentiated me then from the rest of the neighborhood. And I still think it's a life philosophy and a leadership philosophy, a business philosophy, that an academic philosophy that genuinely works. It's been part of my life now for 5 decades.
Coach Joe Moglia with us here this morning. And Coach, before I let you go, college football, of course, evolving, devolving, depending on who's looking at the scene when it comes to two staple Big 12 universities looking for the SEC, maybe greener pastures. Is the grass always greener? We've got this new effort that allows college athletes to essentially make money or receive endorsements through this name, image, and likeness. I'm sure there are plenty of conversations going on in locker rooms and all over the country right now on how to handle that, because some players are going to get more attention than the others, and then there's a jealousy factor, a competition type of factor. How does that all play out, in the grand scheme of things, when we talk about the state of college football, introducing this, controversial, I guess, so to speak, new way of life for these young people?
I think, first of all, with regards to Texas and Oklahoma leaving to go to the SEC or trying to get that set up, that's a function of money. In the Big 12, you really have, in fact, back when, it used to be Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas, and everybody else. Now it's Oklahoma, Texas, and everybody else. Now, Texas hasn't been that successful, but what this will do is significantly enhance the television revenue and the amount of money that the SEC is going to get, number one. So along with that line, as schools make tremendous amounts of money, you got your name, image, and likeness thing going on as far as the players go. Now, philosophically, I'm not crazy about this, but as a business guy, I can see 100% where colleges, universities will go in this direction. You could have seen this 5 years ago, though. 5, 6. We started cost of attendance 5, 6, 7 years ago. The discussion has been going on 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I'm a little disappointed that the NCAA, frankly, didn't step up 5 years ago and take a leadership role with regard to this. So, number one, regardless of whether or not you're an athlete, eventually athletics or it comes to an end. And the mission we had at Ameritrade, Joe, was we want to bring financial literacy to every family in this country. I think it's a sin if our college students are not reasonably financially literate by the time they leave college. Now, about our Life After Football programs at Coastal. I believe our guys were reasonably financially literate. That's for everybody. Now, the guys that are starting to get money now, frankly, they're not, there's no specific, guidelines for everybody that we're supposed to follow. And one way, it was a surprise to an awful lot of the universities. I'm sure different coaches, different universities, different athletic programs, different states are going to look at it differently. Now you have a student, for example, I think in South Carolina. I think South Carolina State winds up getting 15%. Now you got agents coming in that these kids at this level don't know anything about. And I'm hearing they're getting around 20%. So before you even start, you're 35% down. I don't even know if the guys are thinking that way. So now you got 65% left. Of that 65%, close to 50% is going to be taxed. So just on a financial literacy perspective, our guys need to be able to understand it. But that's not just the athletes. That's not just the guys that are going to get money. That's all the student athletes, and frankly, it's the students across the board. My concern about this, not so much for the student athlete, because they got to grow up and they got to learn this. They got to take responsibility for themselves. But I worry about, I think it'll be too easy to truly regulate this. And I think it'll be too easy to kind of find loopholes, cut corners. And that will lead to greater inequality and perhaps even, breaking the rules with regards to college athletics. And that concerns me.
So I'm going to turn into a big old racket, just like we see it everywhere else when money and influence is involved. It's again not hard to foresee, but for the young kids and the student athletes out there, as you mentioned, I mean, this financial literacy stuff. There should be some basic knowledge on that in order to graduate high school, let alone earn a degree from a place of higher learning.
100% agree. Should start in high school. Maybe grammar school should start with budgets.
I mean, basic knowledge. I mean, when 70% of our kids, Coach, can't read, write, or do arithmetic at grade level in our K through 12 schools, it's hard to introduce these sorts of concepts.
It's not acceptable for the United States of America.
Coach, you're one of the best in the business, and I enjoy our conversations anytime we get a chance to catch up with one another. I hope we can do it again soon.
You're one of the best in your business, Joe, and I'm always honored to be on. Thank you, pal.
That's Coach Joe Moglia with us here this morning, former head coach over at Coastal Carolina University, and again highlighting some of his work and life's work inside the financial industry up on Wall Street yesterday, up on the New York Stock Exchange, ringing the closing bell alongside a new endeavor that he's pursuing since stepping away from college athletics. As we move up into the top of the hour, we'll take your calls between now and then at 910-299-7535.
Yeah, here come the rooster. Yeah. You know he ain't gonna die. No.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here, your host of the Lynn with Ben Show, live on 106.7 FM, the Big Talker Radio, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. We talk all things mortgage and real estate related, and we'd love to have you join us this Saturday, 9 a.m.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Attention patriots, listen in to hear President Trump explain why Ted Budd is the right choice for United States Senate.
There's somebody that I think is very special, somebody that I've worked with, always been with me. This man's a great politician, but more importantly, he's somebody that loves the state of North Carolina. He loves the country. But this gentleman is going to be your next senator. He's going to be somebody that you're going to be so proud of. He will fight like hell. He will fight like nobody fights. And a lot of you don't know him that well, but you're going to know him. Ted Budd. I am giving him my complete and total endorsement. We're going to work with him. We're going to campaign with him. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races and do not stand for our values. So I'm going with Congressman Ted Budd, complete and total endorsement.
I'm Ted Budd, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Ted Budd for Senate. See the video at tedbudd.com.
Hey guys, what if I told you that your wedding day could be the happiest day of your life, even if it rained?
You sound like the weatherman.
Better, Jordan. I'm a jeweler with the most amazing guarantee in the diamond business. If you buy your diamond engagement ring from us at Perry's Emporium and it rains on your wedding day, your ring is absolutely free.
It's the Perry's Emporium legendary rainy day diamond guarantee.
No other jeweler in eastern North Carolina has a larger selection of loose diamonds, diamond engagement rings, and wedding bands than Perry's Emporium, all at the guaranteed lowest price. Perry's Emporium in beautiful Barclay Commons behind Henry's and on the web at perrysemporium.com.
We'll see you when you get here.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
I hope you've enjoyed the last 3 hours as much as I have. Great guests, commentary, information that you find nowhere else as far as the discussion goes by far. Outrunning our competitors and opponents each and every day here on the Big Talker FM. Oh, we got that big Nothing Burger news conference yesterday from our local sheriff and the district attorney in regards to that double homicide. I guess it's a wait and see how many, shootings will play out today in the city of Wilmington. The shot spotter was, on number 10, meaning its volume, for about 25 minutes yesterday. 5th and Grace, you got the homeless guy pulling a gun on the cop at the corner of Randall and College in broad daylight near the entrance of UNCW's. We got all that going on. You had the toll bridge discussion. I don't understand why it was such a big discussion. I guess, forward thinking, 25 years. All right, well, I get it. It was like breaking news. They voted no on a toll bridge. 16 years I've been here. We've been talking about a toll bridge. We're no closer than we were 16 years ago on getting a replacement to the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. Now we're going to wake up to it. Well, we've got this infrastructure bill making its way now through the Senate, garnering support from Republicans, including Senators Tillis and Burr. Grover Norquist gave us sort of his explanation as to why the GOP, at least some of them, signed on to it. We'll see how it shakes out up in Washington, D.C. There's plenty, of course, going on here in the state of North Carolina today with King Cooper's news conference set for later on today. On the mask mandates, a reminder to those folks out there, for those who've been following the science, the new study that's being touted by the CDC as to why they've changed the recommendation study from India included no one who's actually got a vaccine made here in the U.S. So not really sure how that has guided their viewpoint and flip-flop over the course of just a couple of weeks. The Delta variant, hearing a lot about that, of course, these days, and once again creating a divide in our country over, the BS COVID-19 Chinese Communist virus. We've got 2 minutes to go here on the Big Talker FM. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Yes, Oak Island calling again. Just a reminder, I looked up what Tom Goolsbee had talked about on the website about the test showing positive for COVID when it was influenza.
Yes.
That is critical to the numbers they're pushing down our throats, saying tests are rising. And I think people should really focus on that when they give us numbers and say cases are going up, because that who knows what the real number is now.
And thank you for that information. And a reminder to reiterate that the PCR instant test for COVID, well, it also flags a positive influenza strand as well, meaning the flu is also can also trigger that positive for the PCR test that's been used for the instant results for COVID. Caller, thank you so much for reminding us that here this morning as we part ways today. Remember that PCR test, the quick rapid test. It flags COVID, but it also flags the flu. Go look it up yourself. We've got the article from the CDC posted on our Facebook page from a couple of days ago, back on Tuesday. Tom Goolsbee pointed that out for us, not the doctors and the scientists and the bureaucrats. You have to ask yourself why. Talk to you tomorrow.
Keeping Oak Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.